It's my duty to please the booty.
And Muzz got mad at me, the coach said, he goes, Jesus Christ, why don't you just wear 2 nines? And I went, okay.
I'll switch the call.
Please never do that.
Yep. So.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 512 of Spittin Chiclets, presented by Pink Whitney from our friends at New Amsterdam Vodka, here in the Barstool Sports podcast family. Wowza, boys. What a wild week. It's been a wild few weeks, and Monday was even wilder, the first day of free agency. I don't think anybody expected what went down, Paul. Biz Nasty, Bissonette. Holy shit.
Money, 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 money. Money, 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 money.
I really miss being a player today. I
might have got fucking $2 million.
I think I was like, I think Biz could have got a 2 by $2 million on July 1st, 2024.
Oh my God.
Shit, the dough that went out.
What the hell was that? That was old school. Like, we missed the old trade deadlines, the old free agency. The cap goes up $4 million, then they say another $4 million next year, and guys are just slinging it around the league, hopping city to city, signing long-term deals. I was seeing some of the numbers. I'm like, this is the greatest day I can remember in free agency in 20 years. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but that was a wild, what was it? Basically like 90 minutes. There was one point where or maybe the first 30 minutes even, I think there was 30 deals.
I mean, it started at like 8 this morning. I felt like right when we woke up this morning, deals started breaking left and right. So it's been
this has
going
been a crazy. I mean, the GMs were slinging it more than I was at Rhino as far as dishing out the cash, just making it rain after all these players. And guys, I actually, when we're going to get to the draft stuff a little bit later on, and all the future superstars, but all the superstars that are current in the National Hockey League are getting paid. And when I was at the Sphere during the draft, I actually walked by Brisebois and I stopped by and I said hello. And you could just see he was running the phones and his wheels were spinning. And I would say of any GM, he was probably the busiest, especially having to saying bye to a few very important pieces to that lineup. And just some craziness, some betrayal, more betrayal. And like I said, all right, we'll send it back over to you in order to get this big boy started.
Well, I mean, we got to say hi to the Whit Dog first. Ryan Whitney, what's going on, buddy? I can't.
Yeah, I noticed you're wearing a Ryan Whitney shirt already. That thing's pretty sick. I appreciate you. I appreciate you rocking that thing, Honk. But first off, guys, I know it's July 1st, and it's Happy Canada Day. I guess you're listening on July 2nd. But as we're recording, Biz, as a Canadian, Happy Canada Day, buddy. And along with Canada Day goes the 4th of July down south, your American neighbors. And we got 4th of July, and what goes with both those holidays is Pink Whitney. And it's one of those things where, yes, I bring up all the holidays, but it does go with each one. But the summers when I've said golf season's Pink Whitney, the beach is Pink Whitney, the pontoon boat is Pink Whitney. So for everyone celebrating 4th of July, get involved. The 1.75 liter bottle is where we can really rock it because that's the big daddy that'll last you all day long, lighting off fireworks. Don't Jason Pierre-Paul yourself because you got to be careful with those fireworks. I believe that was the guy who blew his hand off, correct? All right?
Correct.
Okay. So it was the Giants guy. Yeah.
So be safe. Having a great July 4th, you Americans. I hope you enjoyed Canada Day and enjoy Pink Whitney with that. I just couldn't get over the fact that it happened so quick. And the best part about the Stammer thing is his interview with Sportsnet and our boy Colby Armstrong was amazing. Very transparent, and we can go into what he said there. And then Brisebois' quotes after. It was very similar to Brindamore after they got swept, but he said they didn't get swept. It was like, I'm disappointed, he's disappointed, the fans are disappointed. I don't know how it ended up getting there, but to see it actually happen, even though the rumblings have been going on, Steven Stamkos in another team's jersey is a crazy thought to me.
Yeah, off to Nashville. I mean, Tampa Bay losing Stamkos. I mean, in the realm of history, it's not all that surprising considering guys who leave. But in this situation, man, I think the writing might have been on the wall. But anyways, he's going to Nashville with a bunch of other guys. The Tampa Bay also bringing in Jake Gensel. Is that an even trade-off for you, Biz? I'm like, as far as like losing Stamkos, bringing in Gensel, is that like a proper replacement with you? Like
well,
this,
I mean, before we even get into that, like, let's go back a little bit with Steven Stamkos because, like, you know, he had the full year coming in to where they could have negotiated a contract, right? And I think that he was very surprised at the fact that they hadn't really started any type of dialogue. And then I think Stammer, his comments before the season, or maybe it was just as the season was beginning, is what kind of created a little bit of a press tour where Brisebois did mention, like, oh, you know, we do want this guy and we are going to try to figure something out. Well, nothing comes during the season. And then all of a sudden we're at the table the other day in Vegas, and I misheard at first where I thought it was originally a 3x3 offer, but then you hear about this 8x3. And even when I was talking to Jeff, like he was like, oh, I thought it was 3 years, $8 million, what he ended up getting. But just a huge slap in the face offer, in my opinion. That is an offer that was offered knowing that he wasn't going to accept it and that they could move on from him in order to get other moves made. And that to me is the uproar online now, with the fan base feeling disgusted about how they treated the captain who helped them bring them 2 Stanley Cups, to what is he, 33, 34 years old now? Like, this guy had 80 points this season. This guy's a 40-goal guy. It's not like you're moving away from a guy who's already on his decline. How many players of that age are able to produce like Steven Stamkos is? So the fact that offer came in so insulting, which was baffling to me, and I'm sure, and as you've heard, very baffling to the Stamkos side. There's obviously no question as to why he ended up moving on to Nashville. Now, I'll throw it over to you, Whit. Like, why do you think it fizzled out the way that it fizzled out? Like, do you think that I truly believe that he would have accepted something that was maybe in the $4.5-5 million a year if they would have provided him with similar term?
Yeah, that's the craziest part of all this is without knowing him, we'll never truly know. But let me lay out what we do know. Legendary player. I know LeCavier, but St. Louis, but Stammer played 16 fucking years there, 2 cups, Rocket Richard trophies, first overall, lived up to it. 50 goals his second year in the league when he was, 20 years old. Like, he has been a complete legend of the game since he came into this league, and he wanted to be there. So right away, it wasn't him. You hear the stories of all these athletes who, yeah, the teams are trying to keep him, but they're ready to move on. This guy was making it clear, I want to stay a Lightning. I want to retire a Lightning. And that's when you look, without knowing the real story, there's 3 options. The owner didn't want to keep him. I'm guessing there's no chance that was the case. The GM and his staff didn't want to pay him what he wanted and what he ended up getting, thinking that his game is on the decline and that he won't be worth that money maybe in the second, third, and fourth year, or even maybe they thought he'd have a drop-off this upcoming season. Or then there's the coaching staff, and they were maybe looking at it like, I think this relationship has run its course. Those are the only 3 options. And we could say that the owner probably, I guess we can't for sure, but the owner, I'm guessing, wanted Stamkos around, and there's 2 people left, the GM and the coach. So I don't know. It's unfair for me to say, but how else could you look at it? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what are the other options here? If he was basically like, I'm so disappointed to leave here, but this offer and it was a disgrace. He didn't say that, but with Army on the phone, he clearly said, yeah, I think we're kind of all wondering how we got here.
What I will say, obviously I have a relationship with him, but the coaches don't make the offers. The general managers make the offers, right? And
you don't think the coaching staff and the GMs talk about things, all right?
No, I think they talk about things, but at the end of the day, the general manager is the guy who presents the contract, not the coach.
I understand that, dude, but in an organization like Tampa that's become this, they had like this the finals loss, the 2 cup before that, like they are a closely knit group at the top, so it has to be somewhat of an agreement, dude, that we don't want to pay him what he's going to get. I mean, what other way could you look at it?
Well, I just think it's also insulting at the fact that we're talking about $3 million for a player who averaged over a point per game. So it's not even like this wasn't even a contract.
Yeah, but it's a little different. It was 24 that they know he probably wouldn't play the last two years of that, right?
Which makes it even more insulting, in my opinion, because he's not going to end up getting that money unless what you're saying is he's going to go on LTR.
Oh, that's true.
They offered this player a contract basically being like, here's a slap in the face. We know you're not going to take it. And then we can just go on and get what we actually want in order to do business. Like $3 million a season for a guy who's averaged just under 40 goals the last 2 years, and he's been over a point per game. Like, what other guy is even close to that is coming, that is not on an entry-level contract or who is restricted? Like, this is pure insanity. We're not talking even about like 5.5, which Marchie ended up getting. Like, we're talking about $3 fucking million. Ryan Lomberg got 2. Like, Dakota Joshua got more than $3 million. and he's not restricted, but like this is like that's a role player. That is a middle six guy, never played a top line role or power play in his life. So to me, it's not only the way that the season started, but it's the way that it ended with that slap in the face agreement. And listen, I have all the respect in the world for Brisebois. I think he's a savage. I think he's the type of GM that's 5, 6, 7 steps ahead, as we ended up seeing. But there's some organizations that have no problem being cutthroat. We've talked about Vegas before. They're ruthless. Tampa Bay has turned into a ruthless organization to the point where Sergachev ended up posting a picture online of him and Stammer together on his Instagram. They're moving on from Sergachev. Not just Stammer.
After bringing McDonough back, you're right. They do have the Vegas little bit, I guess, New England Patriots of I don't give a shit. And when we think an asset is declining, we're going to go get who kind of we consider very similar but younger, Jake Gensel. Now, I think it's just hard for the fans. And also, this season gets going and Gensel starts lighting it up. The fans will forever remember Stammer and what an ovation he'll get when Nashville comes to Tampa. But they'll be rooting on the Lightning and rooting on Gensel lighting it up. So it's business decisions just right off the bat, as it's as fresh as it is today. It is shocking to see it kind of all come to an end.
And just give the numbers out, the biz we were talking about. Tampa had offered Tampa allegedly by reports 8 years, $24 million. It comes out to $3 million a year versus $4 million, $32. Yeah, 4 years, $32 million you got from Nashville. A huge difference there. I can see why I was insulted. Even when the other day when that report came out, I says it was ridiculous. Like the guy of that stature, what he did for the franchise, yeah, it was a slap in the face. And however that slap came, Tampa has a whole new face look in town. And let's get the Jake Gensel right now. I think he was the cream of the crop out of the free agency. I think this is a guy who people are going to see just how great he is. I know they've seen it in the playoffs the last several years, but when you're in the shadow of a guy like Sidney Crosby, I think he can kind of come out a little bit more, even though he's in his 30s. What do you say, Whit?
Yeah, I agree. Just a playoff performer. That's what we've always kind of talked about him. So smart. And then he goes over to Carolina, lights it up. And what a kind of weird scenario with Carolina. It seemed like Elliott and the other insiders had mentioned it. You know, he wanted this deal. He had this deal in place, and all of a sudden it got a little closer to the deadline. And I would think that the closer you get to July 1st without signing, the harder it is to end up signing it, because you're like, as everyone's put it, you've waited this long. Why not wait a couple more days, couple more weeks maybe, and just see what I can get? And then see actually all the different teams that are going to be calling me. And then I can go through. And when you're that good and you are the cream of the crop, like you said, you look at the rosters, who got the best chance to win. Where do I see myself fitting in? The snow state tax thing. I think I've mentioned this. I think we have to do something about this at some point. The no state tax thing is very legit. Teams all over the league sign people, but that is an unreal way. I mean, look at what Nashville did. That's another no state tax. Biz's favorite term. The teams Biz wanted to play for. But Gensel realized after just waiting it out and thinking Carolina was his going to be his future home, I got to see what's out there. And I think Tampa, while losing Stamkos and that offer being ridiculous, you got to give credit. Biz said that. Brisebois had it in his mind already. That's the thing, is you wonder how they go about. I guess it's all the agency talking to the agents, but you can't talk to the player. But he knew. You had to think he would have given Stamkos a different offer had he not thought he could have Gensel locked up that early. Do you agree?
Yeah, and another thing I think that Elliott talked about on 32 Thoughts is I think it was an 8x8 number for Gensel, and then that they were willing to match anyone. Now, I don't know where the states of the organizations are. Like we've typically talked about how Carolina is a little bit more on the frugal side. Well, they're not an original six. You know, they don't have this massive, insane budget, and their team valuation isn't anywhere near where these other teams are. Tampa was obviously on the rise and is still a very respectable organization who does have a lot of money, and they're able to fill them up with all that signing bonus and get to that $9 million tag. Now, I texted the group chat. I asked you guys if you thought that was it maybe a slight overpayment, or if you were okay with the money. I guess where I was a little bit confused is like, yes, we know Gensel is an elite playoff performer. We know that now he's able to play away from Sid and contribute and even drive enough traffic on his own line for it to make all sense. But for the difference in money that you're going to pay Gensel versus what you would have paid Stammer if you could have got him on a team-friendly deal that would have been reasonable, for the amount of point production, is it worth that $9 million and taking the risk that you're bringing in a new guy? Like, we knew that Steven Stamkos could produce there. We know that he was a point per game player. So now your expectation is that you're hoping to get that from Guentzel, that he is going to fit in after you've handed in all this money over to him and the signing bonus, and hope that he plays to the level in which that he has in Pittsburgh and Carolina over the course of that length of the deal. So
he's got an 8-year track record of doing it, though. So I think
absolutely.
That's fair. Like it wasn't a fluke year here or there. So I know what you're saying, though. The pressure's on. I think also what makes it a little easier is that Kucherov and Point are so unreal that like, this guy's going to get chances to score. Like, he's playing with elite-level players. And you've seen what he can do with high-level players in Sid, and even like what he did with Aho in Carolina and how he produced immediately there. The track record's there. It's a big number, but as the cap goes up, if he's producing 80 to 90 points and 35 to 40 goals all day, you're paying it, right?
Yeah, at that rate for sure. But like I said, for the difference in what you could have paid Stamkos to stick around and maybe got him on a shorter term deal, and probably around that $5.5-6 million tag if you're keeping him. I wonder if the juice is worth the squeeze. But it's Jake Guentzel, like you said, proven track record, and just definitely a big swing for Brisebois in order to bring him in. And obviously part of the reason that they had to get rid of Sergachev as well. So I don't know if you want to bring it over to Nashville now and how they get two guys that feel like they were both slapped in the face, and explain the Marchessault situation.
Absolutely, yeah. Just let the listeners know, Guentzel did go for 7 years, $63 million, $9 million a year. For a 25th, for a 30 to 25, that was just to get the negotiating rights. I think it's a great bargain. And Sergachev did go to Utah, $8.5 million. They brought out the rights to J.J. Bosa, Connor Geeky, and a couple of picks there. Nashville, obviously, we just mentioned Stammer, 4 years, $32 million. Jonathan Marchessault, man, 5 years, $25 million. Seems like a huge bargain. Also brought in Brady Shea, 7 years, $49 million, $7 million a year. Goalie Scott Wedgwood. But Marchessault, man, I'm shocked he came in at that price. 5 years, basically $5 million a year for that caliber scorer, playoff performance. I would have thought he would have get $8 million at least off that.
Yeah, how old is he exactly?
Marchessault?
Yeah,
I think
he's 33 years old.
Is that old already? Holy shit!
That's maybe be a little bit of kind of hearing what they're gonna do. Also, Stammer being there, they re-signed Saros. How about Barry Trotz, man? And I think the more you look at that team, the city, the fan base, I mean, some people chirp the arena for being like a little older and smaller. The atmosphere is out of this world, Weberbaum, and they just, it's country music, and it's like, it's totally made sense that this is turning in to an amazing place to play. Like, Nashville is a place I think every guy in the league would say, I'd love getting a chance to play there. I remember knowing nothing about it, going there first time as a Pittsburgh Penguin, being blown away. Now it's just growing so much, too. It's like around the country, so many people are moving to Nashville. Colin Whitney, my brother, just moved to Nashville. The place is humming. And all of a sudden, this hockey team, which has the perfect location arena, too, right on one of the most fun streets in the country, is spending money, willing to actually go out. And when they signed Saros, I was like, wow, I didn't necessarily see that. We talked about Askarov, the goalie, who's possibly going to get traded now. But I think Barry Trotz is like, we know what we got here. Let's go out. We'll spend even more money in free agency and give this thing a shot. He had a quote today that he's like, I think we're going to get a parade down Broadway at some point in our future, too. He's thinking ahead, and he's willing to go out and spend dough. And we were talking today, a couple of guys mentioning that, like, nobody even talks about Philippe Forsberg. At least I feel like he doesn't get enough recognition. He's dominant, enormous, can score. And then Ryan O'Reilly fit in so well. I love what they did there. And I think Preds fans, this had to be, besides going to the Cup Finals, one of the best days in Preds franchise history for their fans.
I agree with you. I was shocked at how fucking negative everybody was online. I guess I shouldn't be, about when you're signing these guys who are 33, 34 years old as if they're fucking ready for the retirement home. Like, we're talking about two guys who take so much pride in their game, and they're some of the hardest workers in the offseason, where some people are like, oh, so much for the rebuild. Never once did they talk about a rebuild. This was a straight up fucking retool. Like, look at the last 2 off seasons and the way they've moved. They've went out and got experienced NHL hockey players, like guys like Luke Shen, a good foundational guy for the back end in order to instill those types of quality things you need in order to be a true professional. Ryan O'Reilly, what he's brought into their lineup and the way that, he performed later in the season and even in playoffs. And the one thing that I think that they lacked and they noticed was their power play really let them down against the Vancouver Canucks. And they didn't have that high-end goal scoring to alleviate a lot of pressure off that lineup. So what do they go out and do? They go address those needs, and they bring over 2 wingers who are able to put the puck in the back of the net, 2 bona fide 40-goal scorers year in and year out. So to me, they addressed all their needs right like that with those 2 signings. And they show to the fan base and the guys in the locker room, and everybody wants to talk about these rebuilds like, oh, let's just get all these young players and all of a sudden they're just going to blossom and figure out how to play. The young, talented players they have in that locker room that they've kept, they get to now learn off these Stanley Cup champions. Ryan O'Reilly, Marchessault, Stamkos, and Chenner, all Stanley Cup champions. That's how you build an organization. Trotz knows that. So for the people online talking about the retirement home and like so much for the rebuild, what are you talking about? Stop writing guys off over the age of 30 because so many of them are able to perform at high levels now. So bravo to the Nashville Predators organization and an incredible 2 off seasons back to back. And you get 2 players with that. You don't think these guys are out to prove something now? Why don't you read the March? You think that Stamkos is the only guy who got slapped in the face? Read the Marchessault comments.
Biz, Trotz actually said exactly that, too, in his press conference today. He said, when I became GM of the Predators, I said many times that I was looking to add serial winners to our franchise, and there is perhaps no one who fits that mold more than Steven Stamkos. We're incredibly excited to sign a Hall of Fame player, and what a massive day for the future of our organization. But exactly like you said, Trotz is building winners. That's who he's bringing to town.
Bring them in. Who the fuck are these young guys going to learn off of with?
2 things. Those people, and they're a bunch of pashas. They're the analytics. Yep. Their games decline. Doesn't matter. They're not even looking at the name. You just look at the age and you look at all that and you're like, it's a depreciating asset. There's no point in giving them those terms. When you look at what Nashville's already done, they signed Yossi. They signed Forsberg. They signed Saros. Today they re-signed Carrier on D. Last year, Nyquist came in. He did unbelievable. It's been like a long time of them building and growing and going out and willing to have some young talent come into the lineup. We talked about, like, you need veterans, as you just said, Biz. You need guys to teach young people how to do things. And then when you bring them in and you have these expectations on them, you know for a fact, because of what they've been through in their career prior, that their expectations are going to be even higher. So also, the goalie, the Russian, Askarov. I'm so bad with these Russians' names. I do apologize if you're out there and you're listening and you're Russian, but now they got a trade chip too because they signed Wedgwood. So Wedgwood's solid, dude. You bring him over, you got Saros locked in, and now you're going to get something. I don't know if they're saying we want a current NHL player for their goaltending prospect, but they're going to get something.
I think they said top prospect is what I was hearing. They'd like a top prospect back.
That could help with their younger generation if fans are complaining about bringing in some old guys. I just think you got to get fans in the building. You got to get them excited. They are in Nashville. Why not give them a chance? Another thing is, too, Marchessault and Stamkos, you don't think other fan bases are excited when you get guys who've won Stanley Cups? Like that you're like, hey, we got some guys in the room now. They're going to show our guys what it's all about to win. I just love the day for them. And I thought when Barry Trotz went over there, it was weird because David Poile was finishing up and Trotz had been a coach, and remember we were kind of like, oh, I guess he's just hopping right in, and he's come out of the gate swinging. And as a fan, that's all you want your GM to do.
Yo, and I sent that question over to the group earlier. Like, it's nowadays, it's like you don't just have to win a Stanley Cup to get your price bumped up. If you're playing a Stanley Cup final, it seems to like bump a guy's price up. You agree with that, Biz?
You were saying, is it more likely that guys get a little bit overpaid if they make these long runs? And I think it's also just recency bias and the fact that all these GMs are watching these guys play in these big moments. And when they're stepping up and they're elevating their play, if they can go snag some of these guys who haven't been signed to long-term deals, yeah, it's going to rub off on them. They have that experience. Like even a guy like Fogle or whoever you want to name from that Edmonton lineup who doesn't come back, it's like they got to watch McDavid and Draisaitl do it day in and day out, and they had to raise their level too. So bringing that over is so vital to an organization, and sometimes it's okay and worth a slight overpayment. And it's worked out for some and hasn't for others. But at the end of the day, as we see with the money situation, it happens more often than not.
Hey, congrats to Brady Shea, too. Nice little payday for our pal, too. From a few.
There's another guy.
I didn't realize how great offensively he's been the past few years. I mean, that's a deal that I did see some questions to. I guess the term, but the number, if you look at his stats, that's the number, dude. And yeah, you can argue how long it is, but there's no really like gray area when it comes to UFA's numbers and their comps when they have stats like Brady Shea has. So he was going to get it somewhere, and I think that Trotz already mentioned, like, that's a guy that we know how he could perform in big games. He's been in a lot of huge playoff games with the Rangers, with the Hurricanes. They're looking for guys with that experience, and I also didn't really understand his offensive upside before. I guess he never got the chance in New York as much as we think he should have.
And if there's an organization, too, that can evaluate D, it's the Nashville Predators. So overall, between him and Yossi, you could just fill in the blanks now, bring in some other solid two-way defensemen, if anything, defensive defensemen, and you got yourself quite a good lineup going into next year. I'm very excited for the Nashville Predators, and I would say they're one of the biggest winners, if not the biggest winner of free agencies. Why are you laughing, G?
We were in Vegas last year for the Cup final. We're in Lauderdale this year for the Cup final. All signs point to us going to Broadway and doing the decathlon next year.
Whoa. Let's pump the brakes here. Let's pump the brakes.
Not with the Predators. I'm just saying we're going to get sandbagged into going to another city where we have to drink 5 days in a row.
My liver just ran on my asshole, G. Like, calm down with that stuff. Let's wait a little bit. All right, boys. Rhino, back in Florida. What an unbelievable season he had in Florida Panthers championship. This is a great number for Florida, man. 8 years, $69 million for Sam Reinhart. Comes out to $8.625 million. We've been talking about it since, December, how much money you'd get this year. But when you're comfortable, you want to stay somewhere, it's easier to take a little bit less money despite the sales tax, eh?
Well, let me chime in to it. You talked about the fact that the state tax, and I believe that is going to be a topic of conversation going into the next CBA. There was a list. Yeah, there was a list of things that came out that they're going to look at very seriously. One of which that came out more recent was the length of the season. Because here we are, July 1st. That basically they just finished their parade, and all of a sudden certain guys can't even enjoy it to the level that they want to because their teams are moving on from them. Reinhart is an example of getting to keep a guy at a very cheap number and a hometown discount. Obviously, getting to play in Florida is a huge deal too, and the fact that how comfortable he is there. But on the flip side of it, they had to get rid of Lomberg. He's gone. OEL, not there anymore. Who are the other name? Montour, off to Seattle.
Montour, Stenlund, Stolas. Sorry, Biz, didn't mean to cut you off. Those are the names.
No problem. So as sad as it is in certain areas for the Florida Panthers, they probably lock in the guy that they wanted most. There were rumblings that Montour wasn't going to be back based on the number that he was going to get. And where you kind of touched on it with Shea, like there aren't too many free agent defensemen out there to begin with. And when you got a guy like Montour, who, he probably had an off year, definitely compared to the year before, he was always going to get that number. But Sam Reinhart, 50 goal scorer. I think that this is a huge bargain, and maybe not the fastest of feet, but a guy who has one of the biggest hockey brains going. It was a quote by Maurice who said that he's the second smartest player, I think, outside of Ron Francis that he's ever been around. So those are some high praise, and you knew that there was no way that they were going to let him walk. And the fact that he was willing to come down as low as that number that you just mentioned, what a guy. And even if at the back half of the deal he's not contributing the way that he has been, I don't think it matters. I don't think anybody gives a fuck. Game-winning goal in a Stanley Cup forever will be a legend in that organization. And as I shot in the group text, not shocked if he has at least 3-4 more years like this if he ends up in the rafters in South Florida. So bravo to Reinhart, who actually wasn't able to even go to the parade. He had to miss it. He sent out a video on their social media. He had his best friend's wedding to go to. And once again, another example as to why we should not be playing hockey this late into the summer.
Yeah, that was laid out perfectly. I think that I said to Pasha at one point when they were talking numbers and everyone was kind of saying 9 right around there. And it's an awesome deal for both sides. But I was like, I don't know, how will that ideal age. Like, obviously, Posh and him are boys, but I was like, he's not that fast. And he just kind of went into a long description of how good defensively and how smart he is, and his release, and his game has never been built on speed. And that was the discussion we had about Pavelski for so many years, was like, yeah, as they get older, they're not the fastest skaters, but they've never been the fastest skaters. So it doesn't like change that way they have to get scoring opportunities and chances. And he plays with Barkov, and his shot's that good, and he's just both ends of the ice. Incredible player, and what a couple days, dude. I mean, you win the Stanley Cup, your best buddy's getting married. I don't know if he was the best man, and then you sign for $70 million or whatever it was. Like, you got to just take that all in. He's going to be crushing Pink Whitney on 4th of July.
I heard he gave a $250 gift card as a wedding gift. Not true. I was just
no. He sent him one of those edible arrangements. I remember I sent my wife one of those when we started dating. She's like, if you ever send me one of those again, I'll never talk to you. That's the biggest piece of trash.
Yeah.
No offense if you send out edible arrangements.
Actually, we have an ad read today. We got this new ad.
It's good fight. Defenseman Kulikov, he's going to stay in Florida 4 years, $4.6 million. But a few other names that will not be, well, at least not signed yet. Tarasenko, who was pretty clutch in a few of the games in the playoffs. Your boy Nick Cousins, Biz. And Kyle Okposo, a friend of the program we talked to a couple years ago in Buffalo. And actually, we're lucky to have him on for a little bit right now. So, should we send it over to Kyle right now?
Before we go any further, guys, I need to talk to you about Peter Millar. We just recently filmed a Sandbagger, and of course, I was rocking a beautiful, lightweight Peter Millar shirt, the only shirt I wear playing golf. Summer's finally here, and the warm weather is not leaving anytime soon. And that's why I'm here to talk to you about the always stylish and incredibly comfortable lineup of performance shorts from our friend at Peter Millar. Shorts, shirts, pants, quarter zips, they have it all. Anchored by their best-selling Salem shorts, Peter Millar's Crown Sport line promises peak performance both on and off the course. It's a classic fit, and it's everyday style that makes you look so good, feel so good, and no matter what you're shooting on the golf course or no matter what your day brings, you're dressed to the nines. And for those of you who need even more versatility in your summer wardrobe, their Shackleford performance shorts can even double as a pair of swim trunks for true course to clubhouse style. You finish your round, you don't have to go get changed. You just jump right in the pool with the Shacklefords. So right now, head over to petermillar.com/chicklets to check out the entire Crown Sports line for all of your performance needs. That's Peter Millar, the official outfitter of the USGA.
Well, this is the best way to bring back a welcoming guest. After 17 NHL seasons, he can call himself a Stanley Cup champion. So great to bring back Kyle Okposo. Kyle, we met you a couple years ago in Buffalo. You're a saint of a man, and we're so proud of you right now to be a Stanley Cup champion. How's it feel, my man?
It feels incredible, guys. Thanks for having me on again. And yeah, just hoisting that thing was a literal dream come true.
How the hell is your voice better than RA's right now? I mean, that party must have been absolutely insane, but you look and sound amazing.
I've had probably almost 24 hours now of sobriety. It's been we had the parade yesterday, obviously, which was just wild. But my wife had to we had to get back to Buffalo right away because my daughter is on her way to Rhode Island for Dance Nationals. So I was a dad of 3 today, and life smacked me in the face this morning. So that's why my voice is okay.
That's what Wife talks about coming home from the trips. He's like, oh, God, I'm getting home at 6 a.m. And then as soon as I walk in the door, the wife hands me the kid. Like, now it's your turn, asshole.
Oh, yeah. I literally spent 3.5 months just absolutely dialed in, focusing on myself, doing everything I needed to be doing mentally. And obviously I was still with the kids a fair amount, but my mind is obviously preoccupied. So now it's dad mode for a bit.
She's the one person who can say, hey, that big, huge cup that you won and raised over your head was sick, but you're done with the party now. It's time. It's time to get back to real world mode. Well, I just wanted to ask though, like, going back in for Game 7, that had to be the best feeling in the world, because watching the team, right? It's harder to watch them than when you're a part of it. And for you to get back in that game and play that well too. Merles was talking about you right off the opening puck drop. Take me through your feelings through that whole kind of 2 days.
Well, it's horrible watching. I mean, you're not going to play game 6. And I knew that there was a good chance that if it went 7 that I was going to play based on the conversation I had with Mo. But, you're going into game 6 and you're thinking, all right, this is elimination game. You just put so much into the last 3 months with this team and you just start to get exhausted mentally. You check out a little bit, but so I was watching that game from up top and obviously it wasn't going very well for us. And right when they scored that 3rd goal, I went downstairs and hopped on the bike and had to switch back on mentally. And because I knew I was going to have to get ready to play the biggest game of my life in a few days. So couldn't have been happier, going back in, obviously. But, I talk about the guys on the 4th line, and we had so many guys that could play. And throughout the entire run, like Nick Cousins, Ryan Lomberg, myself, and Steve Lorenz specifically, obviously Stenny was the glue that held us all together. But those guys were so phenomenal, and we wanted each other to do well. We really did, and the support that kind of we gave each other was one of the best parts for me.
So just to circle back, because that was such a pivotal time, and we'll get into the whole team and the feelings, but you're saying in Edmonton, after that 3rd goal, you legit just went down to where the room is and you got on the bike and got back in your head that you were going to be in the lineup. Were you told that you were going to be in the lineup if it went to game 7? Or how did you just have a feeling that you guys were going to rotate?
Mo had kind of mentioned it to me that I had to stay mentally in it because if it's going 7, there's a good chance that I'd be in. So I had a pretty good inkling, and I thought Cuzzy played really well in that game. But so I had a good feeling, and I had to switch it on, and so I just hopped on the bike for 20 minutes to get physically ready to go. And during those 20 minutes, kind of watching the 3rd period, that's when I got mentally ready to go too.
And since we're already on the topic, like obviously you guys up 3 and then you guys lose 3. I know that after the game you talked about how you were playing mini sticks the night before, and I kind of gave you a little bit perspective on this crazy run and where your life's at. But what was the feeling with all you guys and the fact that you did have there was a chance that this would be an epic collapse? Did that seep into your guys' minds at all? Did the 2-day layover really help and get you guys the reset? Because I know they let Bob stay away from the rink. So there must have been just so much going in your guys' minds. Like, what was the conversation like on the plane back from Edmonton?
Yeah, it was after that game, it was pretty down, like we just the initial reaction was we just had 3 chances to win the cup and we didn't do it. So now we're like, holy shit, like we might lose after being up 3-0. And then, but the reset after the flight was okay. We kind of got back to kind of shooting her and just playing poker. Everybody's kind of starting to relax a little bit. And then the day before game 7, Mo, we had a great meeting and we had a great practice, and then everybody's nerves kind of dissipated because it was like, all right, this is ending no matter what the following day. Like our season is going to be over and we know who we are and how we can play. And we haven't done that for 3 games because you get up 3-0 and then all of a sudden you start thinking about the results instead of the process, which is what we've been doing this whole time is we just focusing on how we play. And so we knew that we were going to go into game 7 and we were going to be right. And that's all we were focusing on. So honestly, it was the least nervous that we've been for game 7 versus 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, that feeling of knowing, like, no matter what, guys, like, this is it. I feel like that really must have resonated with everyone. I was curious because Bob has he had been so incredible, 2 playoff runs now. And then all of a sudden you see a couple questionable ones go in, and it just didn't seem like the Bob we'd come to see the first 3 rounds. And then that 2 days off, he didn't practice, and that breaks, and obviously Twitter and all that. They're like, Bob's not on the ice. Somebody wrote that's unusual. Did he just end up staying away? Was he at the rink? Was he talking to guys? Like, he must have had some crazy focus to get ready for that game, and he performed amazing.
I mean, this guy's so dialed in all the time. It's mind-boggling. So just give him an extra day to reset, and that was kind of the talk between Tally and Mo, from my understanding, and that's all he needed was to just recharge his body. He's not a spring chicken anymore. I think he's 35, turning 36, my age. And so just that mental reset gave him kind of the confidence. And honestly, when we scored the first goal, I thought it was over. Like I was that confident in how he was going to come out and play. And obviously they scored the next one quick. So that flips. And then when we got the second one, you're just holding your breath the whole time. But just the way that this guy goes on the ice and he prepares, it is unlike anything that I've ever seen. How he is on his edges. He is so detail oriented. And Stevie Lorenz got a lot of play because he was shooting on him. He was like his shooter. And I would go on, once out of every 6 or 7 times. And we would do some passing drills. And he's always working on the things. Like if he gives up a goal, he then the next day wants to work on 20 different shots that are similar to the situation and the goal that he gave up. Like this guy is just, he doesn't shut it off. So I think giving him that extra day really helped him just reset and realize that he's a main reason why we got to this point.
I thought you were going to say that you started as a shooter and then wrung one off his neck and you weren't allowed back anymore.
No, he wants me to hammer him off his head as hard as I can. He loves it. He screams at guys all practice too. Like they'll rip one high and he'll just go, ooh. It's unbelievable. He's
just taunting them. That's awesome.
Got to be crazy to be a goalie.
Yeah, normally it's the goalie shooting the puck back at you at the corner when you're back in line. And he's just loving it and barking at you guys. That's incredible to hear. And we've heard a lot about his work ethic, and everybody needs a day away at some point. But RA, I'll hand it over to you. You have one?
Yeah, Kai, I want to talk about the effect of Paul Maurice. I mean, he was a great story this whole playoffs. Been a coach for 29 years. His press conferences become legendary. Like, how much of an effect had he had guided you to where you got to? And, just talk about Paul for a little bit.
Well, he's one of the best speakers that I've ever seen. And him and Ralph Kruger are two of the best, in my opinion. And him and Ralph are actually pretty close. But the way that he communicates his message, I remember the first game that I played. It was in Dallas, and right when I got traded, and he comes in for his pregame speech at 5:30, and he left the room 10 minutes later, and I just looked around like, was that fucking for real? Like, it was phenomenal. And they just said, I remember Erod looked at me, and he's just like, oh, wait till he really wants to get us fired up. And so he's able to communicate a game plan in such a clear and concise way, but then he's also able to motivate you after that and get the exact messaging that he wants you to have and that what he wants you to think about in your heads. So just a phenomenal speaker, and he's super smart. And obviously his press conferences are absolutely hilarious because I truly think he's just going to say whatever comes to his mind, and he's so quick and witty and funny that they come out like that. So the world got to kind of see a little behind the scenes look into how he is, but just a phenomenal coach and a great person. I'm really happy I got to play for him.
Off the top of my head, like you go through your career, you play as a 19-year-old, score your first goal on Martin Brodeur, I read, and then all of a sudden you're captain of Buffalo, some tough years, you're injured, your family's been with you through all this. Did any of these things, was there one particular thing when you raised the cup that you thought about? Or was it more just like, I did it?
Oh, that kind of just hit me with all the feels, like,
oh yeah,
summarizing the career like that. But
yeah, it's just there's so many thoughts that could go through your mind, and maybe in the moment I wouldn't know. You're just like, yes, but I didn't know if after anything in particular stood out.
For me, it was more the last 3.5 months because I was comfortable in Buffalo, right? I wanted to win, and I really tried to do absolutely everything I could to get us to the next level. On and off the ice, in the community, I gave it literally everything that I had, and I wanted to continue to do that. But I knew that if I didn't take this chance and go try to win a Stanley Cup, that I would have regretted it forever. And I remember sitting about 15 feet from where I am now with my wife on, 40 different occasions. And we're sitting there and we're talking about every single pro and con. And I'm somebody that I analyze the situation to death, and I want to know every outcome. And literally everything that happened in those conversations kind of happened in real life and it was hard. It was hard going down there for me without my family because they're such a big part of my life. And then all of a sudden I'm just a player again, and I'm not the captain of the team. And I went down there knowing that I was not guaranteed to play at all. And they were very upfront with me about that, which was great. I've never had a problem working hard, or I'm not going to go down there, and if I'm scratched, I'm not going to be a shit guy. Like, it's just not really me. But just what I went through in those 3 months was kind of what really hit me, and where I got to, and not playing game 6 and then getting back in there for game 7. And like, I felt like I played one of my best games that I had in a long time. And it was just to do it with that group. And from when I first walked in the locker room to where I stood before that game in game 7, just unbelievable.
Well, I mean, you kind of just summarized the trade there with what your thoughts were. And I mean, what was it like going into that locker room for the first time? I mean, they have so many character guys and so many guys that you would want in your corner in order to win a championship. So how quickly were you able to get acclimated, and were you jaw dropped at some of the talent in there? Like, you'd probably, you've never played with Sasha Barkov, you've played against him, but like, what was it like with these guys, and how quickly were you able to gel and figure things out?
It was pretty quick, but I'm also somebody who, when I walk into a room, I'm not going to say a lot. I'm going to kind of observe, and that's what I tried to do in this instance. So first week and a half, I just, I come in and I'm me, but I just want to make sure that I have kind of all the dynamics at play. I want to see kind of who fits in where, who's doing what. So I tried to do that for the first little bit. And once I kind of figured all that out, then I started to gel with everybody pretty quickly. And I mean, as far as on the ice goes, Barkey is incredible. This guy does absolutely everything, and he's so strong. He's so gifted physically, but then he doesn't cheat the game either. And those guys are very few and far between. He's the closest thing to 37 to Bergeron that I've seen, and he could have probably 120 points a year, but he never cheats the game because he just wants to win, and he's that good. And, Gus Forsling, he's a guy that I didn't really know about him a lot, and then you play with him, and this guy just kills plays constantly. It's just ridiculous. And, then you see all the other personalities. But as far as, off the ice kind of gelling with the guys, I used to get into it a lot with Chucky, as everybody does, right? And and so they kind of know that, like, that I can be a dog too, right? So that was never really an issue. And then it's just about fitting in personalities. And, I've never really been, one that's hard to get along with, I feel like. So just a lot of, times in the sauna, just shooting the shit. It was great.
Another guy I want to bring up was Evan Rodriguez. He's one of these guys that, might not be a huge name when he gets signed at the free agency time, but I think he was essential to your guys' cup run this year.
Erod, yeah, he was phenomenal. I mean, I played with him in Buffalo, so when he was really young, actually. And I remember having him and his wife Christy over to the house, and I think it was kind of the first time they got called up, so it was a bit of a full circle moment. Now he's playing up, he's got a huge role, and he was fantastic for us. Like, he can play with anybody. He's one of those guys that is so smart that he can play with all the superstars. You guys know how hard it is to play with those superstars sometimes, because you just want to give them the puck. But he's played with Sid. He's played with Nate. He can play with Barkey. And he fits in seamless because he knows when to hang on the puck, when to have the confidence to toe drag somebody, and when to give it to them because he knows he's going to get it back. So, and he's able to fit in with all those different styles. That's a special player. And he took his game to another level in the playoffs. He was phenomenal.
So at the celebration, that's what everyone wants to know about, right? Like, who was getting after it the most? What'd you think of the parade? Ends up going down, I believe, A1A, right? Was it Los Olas and A1A? And you saw the elbow room was bumping. Was it exactly what you thought it'd be, or just a little bit different in Florida?
It was nuts. I mean, I don't really know how it was anyplace else, but the celebration, the locker room was probably one of the best parts. I mean, just being.
Did you have the honor of seeing RA get dragged out of there?
I actually heard about it, but I didn't see you on the ice, RA. I don't think I saw you. If I did,
I know I want to come up and shake the hand and congratulate you, Bill. I did not see you out there, so congratulations belatedly.
No, I missed the whole antics, but it's funny now. We can laugh about it. Obviously, you guys have done so much for the game, and it's. I feel like in that situation, it's just kind of like it goes both ways. We can be a little pissed off at you, but we're not pissed off at you. You know what I mean? So,
absolutely.
I think it's pretty funny now. But the locker room Pasha was in there. I looked over. I actually screamed at him like, "Oh, you're the new RA." We're in the corner, but just being in the locker room with the guys, and I literally sat in my stall. When I first got to Florida, Mo kind of came up to me and he's like, "I know we put you in the corner, and I know you got 1,000 games, and you're obviously very well respected and a good leader, but we're just going to put you in the corner. We don't want to mess up any chemistry." I'm like, "Oh, that's fine." And then it ended up being the best thing ever for me because I literally sat there. I stood in my stall and watched all these guys lift the cup and shower each other with champagne and everybody hugging. And I sat there for probably an hour and a half. It was unbelievable with a bottle of champagne. And I went to go get more when I needed it, but it was just phenomenal. That's a moment that I will never forget. And to jump into the parade. So we're all kind of standing there, and I got my 4 kids, and I got my mother-in-law and my mother-in-law's sister helping out, but the kids are getting kind of antsy. It's super hot, right? And so we all get on these double-decker buses, and we're standing there. We're kind of waiting around, but we couldn't go yet because we hear it's pouring down at Las Olas, down at like A1A. So we're sitting in the parking lot of War Memorial, which is our practice facility, and it starts absolutely coming down, like pounding us with rain. So then we just go, and we're on top of this double-decker bus, and like there's branches, and guys are ducking under these branches. So it did not get off to a good start. And then the whole trip down there, it is pounding us with rain, like sideways. My 2 younger ones had to go down below, and we're just like trying to wave at everybody, but we can't see. And there's not very many people like on the initial route because it's just pouring. But once we got down to A1A, it was banana land. Like just people lined up side to side. And by this time we had been on the buses so long that guys had to piss, right? And so guys are running off and pissing, high-fiving with the fans, whatever. My wife, I don't drink beer either. So I got everyone's like chucking beer cans at me. I'm allergic to beer. That's why I don't drink beer. But guys are like chucking beer cans at me. I'm catching them. I'm like, I can't drink this, whatever, blah. So then somebody else is throwing a White Claw. I'm trying to chug that. My wife ran into CVS to go get us bottles of wine because that's basically what I drink is red wine. So I was crushing red wine on the parade, and my son had the Stanley Cup and like his mini Stanley Cup, and he's drinking Coke and Sprite out of it and thinking he's the coolest person in the world. And so it was just bananas. All the speeches were phenomenal. I mean, there's so much we could go into.
I mean, the funniest one was probably Ekblad giving the fuck you to Brooks Koepka, getting him back with the pylon. I mean, it was obviously lighthearted because I think they've patched things up since then. But what was, other than Paul Maurice getting up there because he hits it out of the park 10 out of 10, what was the one speech that stood out where maybe it was unexpected from a guy who doesn't say much?
I mean, it was Eki for sure. And, Barkey usually doesn't say too much, but when he does, he carries a big weight. And I thought what he got up there was phenomenal. He starts chanting Sergey. It's just incredible. But I mean, when Eki got up there, he had the cone, and I was like, "Oh, it's coming!" Like Brooks is a huge Panthers fan, right? So I mean, he hangs out with a couple of guys and whatever. So I think it's all good. But just the fact that he did that was phenomenal.
I thought one of the most impressive things was Lamborghini at the 11 strip club. I think that if he didn't get a contract anywhere, he'd probably be able to make more working there the way he was working the pole.
Oh, Lambo is he's one of a kind. I look back at one point in the parade, and I mean, he was tarp off with the running back from the Dolphins at Mozart, and they were in the fire truck and bringing those guys beers, and just, I mean, he was having an absolute time. What a guy.
I also like to shift to Tkachuk because I feel like not only does he do so much on the ice, but he's able to work the media. Like I look at him like a WWE superstar. He's carrying around that belt, and just the way he's able to, to articulate, especially even doing interviews before games and stuff like that. So what was it like hanging around a guy like that who'd obviously been passed down from hockey lineage like his old man? Like he was a rock star this whole run.
Yeah, I can't say enough good things about him. The best part about it for me, we became like fast friends, right? Like Whit like this. Like we golfed at his place a couple times down in Florida, nice track. And so like we obviously share that passion with golf. So we connected right away. But the best part for me about Chucky is how he treated my son. And, it's like Rhino and his wife, Jess, they used to come over to our house all the time. We were in Buffalo and just loved being with our kids. And they just wanted to be around and be with them and feel that family atmosphere. And Chucky, I think, saw a lot of himself in my oldest son. And he took such extra time to just talk with him and sit there. And we were at his house the day after we won, and we had the cup, and I don't remember what I was doing. I was sitting somewhere, and I walk over, and Chucky's just sitting there on the couch talking to him. And they probably talked for an hour, and he loved being with my kids because he saw so much of himself in my son, and the way that he treated them was just phenomenal, and it's something that I'll never forget.
Guy, what do you plan on doing with your day with the cup whenever it comes?
I'll probably be in Minnesota, and I haven't decided what I'm going to do in the morning. If I'm going to go to like where I grew up playing, or possibly bring it to Shattuck. I don't know. I haven't really decided kind of what those details entail. I kind of have to figure all that out logistically, and then we'll do something kind of mid-afternoon. We got an area where I live that has like a old general store that's been there since 1895. I might set up some tents and have a little barbecue, and then we'll have a nice shaker at night.
Unbelievable, man. I don't know if you have anything else for him, Biz.
I got a lot. Yeah, I got a few.
Okay.
I got a few other ones. Do you? I was gonna part of what was so impressive about Florida is the way they play, like how they smother you defensively, how they control the middle of the ice, like how good they were along the boards. Like I don't think I've ever seen a team as good along the wall as you guys were. So how was it like getting acclimated to the systems? Because you talked about how Paul Maurice is so good at articulating the way he wants you guys to play and motivate. So how long did it take for you to get adjusted, and how impressive was it for you to step into a team that was just that good at so many things?
It was definitely an adjustment because, coming from Buffalo and the way that we played, it was a lot of skill. You're carrying the puck in through the blue line, across the blue line, trying to make a play. You're basically making plays all over the ice, and without giving too much away about how they play and all their systems and the terminology that they use. But I mean, there wasn't a lot of that. It's, what you're getting. You're getting the red line, and you're rimming the puck, and you are going to get it. And I feel like at this stage of my career, with the role that I was asked to play, it was awesome for me. Like that's my game, right? Like I played along the walls for 17 years, and that's been a big part of who I am. The attention to detail defensively was something that kind of around, December, I started to really try to focus on and hone in on because, I felt like I felt like I wanted to get a chance to win. And I knew that if I was going somewhere to play in the playoffs, that I was going to have my details so sharp. But Paul takes it to another level and how he communicates that and the things that we do defensively, and calls it our hard gaps. And, we don't want to give any space out there. And like Biz, I know you said, I think I saw you say anaconda chokehold or something like that.
Day.
Yeah. Like that's how we play. Hard defense, but unafraid too. And a lot of times, like in Buffalo, when I was there, we talked about being fearless offensively. And here it was be fearless defensively, because that even if you're hard gapped and somebody does get by you, you got other guys that are going to be right there to smother them. So it was fun to play that way, honestly. Like a little bit of that pressure and that anxiety, like, oh, I got to be good. I got to be on my check. I got to be on the puck and on the body. And it was a lot of fun.
You mentioned Reinhart, and I imagine it was so difficult to see him get traded, right? And you guys are buddies in Buffalo. You play together, and then you end up winning the cup with a good friend from another team. How happy for you, for him, were you? And then also, how excited were you finding out it was Florida to kind of get reunited with a good buddy?
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. I mean, we were talking throughout the whole process. We played them, I think, a week before the deadline. So we were staying connected. And then the night before, we caught up and we're hoping that it would happen. So just to get down there, and my first day down there, I walk into the gym, and you guys know, you go into a new team, you don't know where anything is. And it was the first time for me mid-season, and they were playing Calgary that night. So I walk into the gym, don't know anybody. And it was after the second period, and he went to go grab like a bar or something, and he like saw me, and he just gave me a huge bear hug. And so it was great to be down there with him. And when we won, that first embrace that I had with him, you're just hugging everybody. You're so excited. And him and I just the biggest hug, and the look on our faces, like, could you imagine when we were where we were, that we would be here about to hoist the Stanley Cup together? Just incredible.
We're not the problem. We weren't the problem.
Well,
this is awesome.
We had Eichel. We had O'Reilly. It's our turn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, you know what? I'm going to touch on that a little bit. I spoke about it a little bit during the playoffs, where you get guys who haven't had playoff success, and they get labeled as guys that aren't dogs or can't compete or can't work in a system. But a lot of that's no fault of their own. And I am not shitting on Buffalo. I'm not, because I loved Buffalo and I loved my time there. And I wanted to do, like I said, everything that I could to help. And I really do believe that they will figure it out. I really do, because they have people who want to be the best there, and they will get it done. And the more direction that they have, and the better people that they bring in, I really do think that they will get it done. And it is such a phenomenal hockey city. Like, man, when this team is good, it is going to be one of the best places to play in the league. And the atmosphere when the building was rocking, you watch those old clips when they were winning President's trophies in like '99, and the square outside, like, people love Buffalo. They love the Sabres, and they want them to be good, and they will.
Kyle, was there anything that in particular that surprised you about playing hockey in Florida? I know it's had a tough reputation, especially on the east side of Florida, but what surprised you the most about playing there this year?
It's a good question. I don't know if anything was really shocking. Well, I guess for me, I went down there, and I kind of thought that maybe guys wouldn't be as dialed, because it's Florida and you have so many of these other things that you can do, and you can golf, you can go to the beach, all that. And I could not believe how locked in these guys were. It is full go time, and we are going to win a cup. And maybe that would have changed if I was there the entire year, a little bit more lax, but everybody goes in there and they do their work, and then they have fun. And it doesn't matter what you do on your off day. You can do anything you want. That was probably, to kind of further expand upon what I was talking about before, is you can do anything that you want between games and after practice and whatever. But when you come to the rink, you are coming to grind. And that was probably the most surprising thing is the work ethic from everybody top to bottom.
I just had a couple about, like, you're going into these insane environments. What one was the most intimidating just going through the rounds? Because you have that Battle of Florida to start things off. Then it's off to Boston. Then New York, you guys were down 2-1 in that series. You're at MSG. And then, of course, the atmosphere in Edmonton. So, like, what was, like, overall, what was the crazy ride like? And what do you think was the most intimidating building that you had a chance to play in where you're like, wow, this is the fucking NHL. This is the biggest stage going.
Yeah, I mean, each one presented different challenges, right? I mean, we go up 3-0 against Tampa, and then they pound us in game 4, and so the rink gets going, right? Like it was great atmosphere game 4, but we finish it off in 5. Then you go to Boston, and we went all 3 in Boston, but that's not an easy rink to play in. It's a fun rink to play in. Their fans are obviously so passionate, and but it was really good series, like really tight, could have gone either way, break here, break there. And then, you go to MSG, and I was sitting up top for the first 2 games in MSG. I didn't play. And the press box there, if you guys have been, it's kind of like a catwalk. And so there's fans behind you. And I was sitting at the very end of the press box. And in game 2, especially, I was getting chirped hard. Just
heckled.
Suck. You'd have buried that if you weren't a healthy scratch. Like, you bomb, just constant. And so that was fun. I obviously playing in Long Island for a long time. The Rangers fans don't forget. So that was a blast. But that rink was, it was jumping, it was going. That was a really fun atmosphere to play in. But I mean, the only thing that I've ever seen that was as close to kind of that decibel level was the Nassau Coliseum. That was how Edmonton was. Like, it was loud. And obviously the fans were in it. You guys were there and had a front row seat to it. But that bus ride after game 6 was hard. And we were getting, guys were fired up. You guys were fired up.
I heard fans were like throwing shit at the bus. You guys were getting insulted.
They were chirping your family members and stuff, weren't they?
Yeah, game 4.
Oh, that was game 4. Excuse me.
Yeah, game 4 when we were there, there was a couple incidents, and like, hey, I get it, but at the same time, kids and wives should probably be off limits in those situations.
No doubt.
But I understand everybody's fired up, and fans are fans, and they're fans because a lot of times it's irrational. It's just irrational, blind love for your team, and that's it. So I understand it, but we were pretty fired up after that game 6 bus ride, and just seeing, how fired up the city was, and they thought that they were going to take it, and that gave us some extra juice.
Another guy I wanted to ask you about, Sam Bennett, the Menace. Like, as much as I want him on my team come playoff time, I think he should probably be in a max security prison when he's not playing hockey, because this guy's a bit of a psycho. What did you make of the whole thing when that whole Boston thing came about? And just how fun was it going to a bat with a warrior like that who he's got a different switch? Let's just put it that way.
I love Benny. I mean, I went down a YouTube rabbit hole of some of his fights and hits.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty spectacular if you want to spend about 30 minutes doing that, but
not bad for a guy who can't do any chin-ups at the combine, eh?
Yeah, not bad. But no, he's a dog. He doesn't say much. He's just like kind of a silent assassin, like just like he is on the ice. He just lets his play do the talking, and yeah, I mean, he can, when he sees red, it's full running of the bulls. And as far as the Marchand thing, he's I can say this now, he had a broken hand, so he's playing with a broken hand on his other side. So when he comes to hit him, he can't protect himself with that hand, so he's got to try to go this way. And I don't think he's trying to like punch him in the face. I really don't. But I mean, he is a guy that you want in your corner for every single playoff series, and he's just a phenomenal dude too. Great guy.
Did he make you do any Burt Reynolds shots after you guys won it? That's his go-to shot. He made me suck a few back at the Stampede one year, so I was just wanted to ask about that.
I probably did. I don't
probably. That's unbelievable. quickly, just the other guy I was going to ask about who was a really impactful player, and you guys had so many, is Carter Verhaeghe, Mr. Clutch. I mean, how many times has he came through with, whether that's the OT winner or a late game winning goal? It just seems like that guy was able to figure out where to be at the right time.
Yeah, Goo is, I call him Goo, but he just phenomenal, so clutch, and he wants to be the guy. He wants to be the guy to score the goals, and that's why he does it. He just goes on the ice and he's like, I don't really care about anything else. I'm just going to go score, and I'm going to be the difference maker. And I think that's a big reason why he's so clutch. It was funny when we were in the locker room after we won. I was sitting in my perch. I looked around and he was in full gear probably until 2:30 in the morning, and he had the cup for almost the whole time. It was just dumping champagne in it, beers in it, feeding it to guys, and I just said, that's a guy that's done it before. He knows what he's doing. So it was pretty cool.
Kyle, during the whole run, as a veteran, were you able to like tell guys to absorb it, take it all in, but maybe at the same time saying, shit, like, this could be my last run? What was your feelings going through that, talking about the younger guys in particular?
I don't know. I like having a nice deep conversation with people, as everybody kind of knows who knows me. So I wasn't shy about sharing my perspective with the younger guys. And in this life, hopefully I'm on the younger side or middle aged, but in hockey terms for players, I am, old and grizzled. And so I was able to say, I think in life, when you are older, you obviously have a different perspective because you've experienced things, and hopefully you can gain some wisdom from that experience. And I love talking to guys about my experience, and not in a way of like, oh, I did this and I did that. It's just, they tell a story, and I don't know, I just listen and then try to say, okay, this happened for me, and this is what I tried to do, or, I wish I would have done this differently. And so I really enjoy having those conversations with the guys, and I hope that I was able to help my teammates in a way, and I think I did. And as far as, maybe it's my last one, maybe it's not. I haven't quite made up my mind on that front yet, but it's fun to go through a run like this after having the last 8 years where I didn't play in the playoffs. I had 3 years on the island out of 9 where I did. To have all of that culminate into this special run, everything was worth it. And all I tried to do was consume the moment and take everything in and enjoy everything. The fear, even after game 6, when we're 3-3 and we're on the verge of the biggest collapse in sports history, right, which everybody was kind of saying, I loved it. I took it all in, and as Whit said at the start of the pod, I went out with my kids and my 2 boys. And they were playing mini sticks. Dad, can you play night before the game? And I was like, yeah, fine, all right. And I started to play, and I give up a goal, and I kind of half-ass shoot one, whatever. And then I was just like, you know what? I'm going to have some fun here. And I'm going to just like go back to when I was in the driveway when I was 8 years old, pretending I was going to play in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, because you know what? I'm playing in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals tomorrow. And it was such an awesome moment that I had with my boys, and those are the things I'm going to remember forever.
That's awesome. We couldn't be happier for you, man. And thank you so much for coming on to describe your whole experience and break down what it was like playing with all these awesome players and coaching staff. And I can't think of anyone more deserving, man. And to see your ride and the journey you've been on, and to maybe end it like this, it's remarkable. Now, you did make a comment. You're contemplating whether to retire or not, or are you trying to play longer?
I don't know. I haven't officially decided yet, but we'll see. The last couple of years have been pretty eye-opening for me, with everything that I went through with the NHLPA and helping that process along, and meeting some different sort of business people and a lot of different people from around the game of hockey too. Like it's invigorated something in me and gave me some excitement for things in the future. And I really enjoy that side of it too. I enjoy, all different aspects of a business or, building a team or whatever that may be. I'm excited for that next phase as well, but we'll see.
Well, if it is, buddy, hell of a fucking run, and we appreciate you coming on, dude. Man. You're a legend.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Our pleasure, buddy.
You're the man.
Congratulations,
Unreal.
Kyle.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you so much to Kyle Okposo. What an amazing player. If that is a career, holy shit. I mean, he didn't play the role Ray Bourque played, but that's Ray Bourque-ish, and you always say it never ends like that. Finishing off with a Stanley Cup. If that's it, who knows? He's not sure. He wants to play a lot of golf. I know that. And he actually mentioned right when we were done recording, he's like, oh my God, the cup, by the way, the best part about it was how it was so imperfect. All the little dents in it, all the bottoms all banged up, all the marks from everyone having it for so long. So he was amazed at the weight of it, and he was amazed at basically the shape of it. So thank you to him. Boston. I'm in Boston right now. That's where I live. The Bruins, Don Sweeney went out and made some moves. He made a couple things happen. That Lindholm deal was nice. I was like, whew, that's it. That's an interesting one. And you know what? The Bruins, ever since the Chara and the
Savard.
Mark Savard deal, they're willing to spend. They're willing to go out. They've proved it with Pasta and McAvoy and all these signings, and they made themselves a better team, I believe. DeBrusque gone. We'll go into that. That's a tough one. Probably time for him to make a change, and he got a payday. But I love Lindholm, and Zadorov's the media is gonna eat him up here, or I guess he'll just crush it. Making it sound like the media eats him up is probably a bad thing.
Yeah, defenseman Nikita Zadorov, absolutely unreal season with Vancouver in the playoffs last year. 6-year, $30 million deal he came here for. Elias Lindholm, 7 years, $54.25 million. There've been very few Russian defensemen in Bruins history. I think he's the 6th or 7th. But this guy, we saw what he did last season in Vancouver, pro season. He's great in his own end, great offensively. Occasional penalty you might not want. But what he brings to the team, what he brings to the locker room, and especially with the interviews, man, I was psyched about this. I tweeted a week ago, I hope they bring him in, and I'm fucking absolutely fired up about it. Biz, what's your take on these two signings?
Let's go to Zadorov. I was shocked that he didn't end up back in Vancouver just based on how he was embraced by the fan base as well as the team and how much success he had there. Obviously, it's a guy who has moved teams before. I don't know if the number got to be too high, and the fact that they'd committed to Roenick and a few other players where they just didn't have the money to squeeze him in. And as we know, Tyler Myers got a pretty team-friendly deal there as well. But as we know, you need these big, lengthy, big-bodied defensemen in order to win Stanley Cups, and that is the perfect fit, in my opinion, for the big bad Bruins. And you mentioned sometimes takes a bad penalty here and there, bad turnover, and sometimes he can get off the rails. But ultimately, what I think that he proved playing in Vancouver is that he can handle the bright lights, and especially come playoff time, and that's what Boston needs. And hopefully he's able to go in there and play to where he was towards the end of the season and playoff time. As far as Lindholm's deal, I think it's huge just because he's also the type of centerman where he's responsible defensively. Do I think he's a true number one center? I think when he's playing with quality players, like he proved with like Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk the year prior, when they were in Calgary. So he'll have that opportunity playing with top-end talent in Boston, where he's probably not going to be relied on as heavily offensively, but can keep up with those types of guys. So I think that Draisaitl would be the perfect fit there eventually if he does end up moving on from Edmonton, where all of a sudden you would have Draisaitl.
We got to end this Draisaitl Boston talk.
You don't like that rumor mill?
It's all Grinelli. It's all Grinelli. So you could keep going into it. It just makes my blood boil, and you can understand. You can understand why.
But ultimately, paying a guy $7.75 is a great place to land on what you're going to get from Lindholm, and it's definitely an upgrade from. And I don't want to. This doesn't come off as an insult from Coyle and Zaka's standpoint. I think the world of those guys. I think they both had incredible regular seasons. I just think as they got into the thick of things, as they moved on in playoffs, it just wasn't where they should have been from a natural standpoint. I think Charlie Coyle would be a great second, third line center on a Stanley Cup winning team. You finally alleviate a little bit of pressure in that position, in which seemed to be the talking point majority of the season.
Not only did you gain a first-line center, Biz, but you're also gaining a first-line wing because now you can move Zacha to where he's played the best hockey in his time in Boston was on the wing. So now you can now move him over to that wing on that first line, and now you're throwing out Lindholm, Pasternak, and him on the first line, and that's a great first line if you ask me. Up the middle, you have Coyle, you have Lindholm, you have Beecher, and you got Matty Poitras coming back. I love where this team's going. I love everything they're building, and I love the draft pick they made at the draft. That 6'7" kid out of BC. How can you not love that kid?
Yeah, so they're looking pretty good signings, and if you're a Bees fan, you got to be licking your chops. I think going into next year, probably a better roster than this one.
Definitely. No question about it. Needed help in the face-off dot, needed help defensively up the middle. No question about it. They're a better team. Losing to Bruss sucks. It really does. I mean, that's 25 goals guaranteed every year, but I think you can find goals. I do. I think they'll be able to find someone who can come up, score 10, 15, 20 goals on that first line, second line, but I think they're good.
I think Zadorov, it must have been where they're going back and forth, and then the number, they just decided, Alvin's like, I can't do this, and that's when Myers got that deal. All right, well, we're going to bring one of these big boys back, and they just decided that they couldn't deal with that. But I was surprised too, Biz. It seemed like he just fit in so well. He did. It didn't seem like it. And he was that good against Edmonton and Nashville. So I think that the Bruins fans are going to love him. That's one thing you always think about in this town, at least, is they can get on players. Every city can, especially the original six, I guess. But they're going to love the way he plays. The one question mark will be, prior in his career, he's been in a bunch of different places. He's made the occasional kind of just like, what the hell was he just doing? I mean, you take the good with the bad, but I don't think Bruins fans are expecting like an elite offensive talent, and they really don't need that on defense there. They just need like a shutdown guy, a difficult to play against guy, and a Bruins team that was always thought of as the big bad Bruins. They didn't seem necessarily that way this past season. Even last year when they were breaking all those regular season records, now it brings back some muscle. It brings back a little bite into the blue line there. So I think it's a great signing.
I still think they need a little bite on offense. I still think they're missing like they lost Pat Maroon, Lucic from the season before. Lauko's now out. I do think somehow, whether it's through the minors, whether Trent Frederick's going to kind of take a step back from 15, 20 goals and he's going to be that fighter, they need to add some type of grit in the bottom six.
The best part about it for me is the fact that I get to call him Big Z, and it's going to drive Boston fans out of their minds. And that is something I look to continue to do.
Call him Little Z.
No.
Z Jr.
It doesn't matter. He specifically requested that nobody calls him Big Z in Boston, but that's not going to work with me.
Well, he's definitely got a sense of humor. We know that. I texted him today a little, welcome to Boston. If I can help you out with anything. He replied, I thought you're an Oilers fan. Ha ha.
Oh,
what the hell could you help him out with at Boston?
Suits. He's going to help him with his suit game.
Couple fell off a truck.
Anything he needs, anything he needs, that can help out with anybody who comes to Boston.
Yeah, I think he's staying away from that, the stuff that you could help him with.
Okay, all right. Chicago Blackhawks, I mean, obviously Connor Bedard, they're going to be building around him. Brought in some new faces, well, an old face, but a few new ones too. Tyler Bertuzzi, 4 years, $22 million. Toivo Teravainen, Turbo as they call him, 3 years, 16 plus. Pat Maroon, 1 year, 1.3. Craig Smith, 1 year, $1 million. And defenseman Alec Martinez, $4 million. I think that's a great veteran signing. Biz, Blackhawks, things going to be looking up for them here, eh?
Yeah, I just think that they overall needed to put a more competent team on the ice. They were trying to solidify getting another high pick and going through a torturous year like that. But when you got a guy like Connor Bedard, we talked about it with the bringing in winners with Nashville. Like Alex Martinez has been there, right? Like Tyler Bertuzzi, he's got a decent track record where I feel like when the going gets tough, that's where his game elevates. Wasn't crazy about the way the year started for Tyler Bertuzzi. That might be a complaint for Chicago fans. He just seems like the type of guy to rev it up when the back half of the season comes along. But I thought that was a fair number. Surprised at that number that the Leafs couldn't fit him back in the roster, but I just think that this team needed to have a better showing on the ice than last year, and they are getting there. And I was happy with their moves, and they look like a more respectable team.
I was watching Barstool Chiefs video. He was saying how he was kind of really holding out hope they could get Tanev, who goes on to the Leafs. But Alec Martinez is that veteran guy. He can munch minutes. They're going to get Taylor Hall back, right? Bertuzzi and Hall played pretty well together on the Bruins. Maybe they have a little bit of a connection. And I think that this team will take a step forward. I don't necessarily think they're a playoff team yet, but everything that I hear, like all around, like different scouts I talk to, Chicago's prospect pool is like out of this world. It seems like all the guys that they have coming up and that they're drafting are going to have a legit chance of making an impact the same way all those draft picks did as they came up at the beginning of that dynasty. So I think it's a great spot to be a Blackhawks fan right now because it's been a lean few years, but it hasn't seemed like forever. They had so much success in 10, 13, and 15 that, all right, we're ready to get going again. And today was kind of all right, like I think that this team's going to take a step forward. Then we get some prospects coming in the springtime, maybe some college guys, junior guys, and then we're off and running the following year. That's how I look at it. Bedard's third season is when they're competing for a playoff spot.
And it was Teravainen already there?
Yeah.
He had already been there, right?
Yeah.
I like him as a player. I think he's a great all-around guy, and then came over from Carolina, so another guy with winning pedigree.
Speaking of winners, Seattle looking to get back in the playoffs next year. Chandler Stevenson, Stanley Cup with Vegas last year. Brandon Montour with Florida this year. There's last 2 years of Cup winners. Chandler Stevenson signed 7 years, $43.75 million. Brandon Montour 7 years, $50 million. Some nice change for those boys. I mean, with this and the new coaching change, I expect them to get right back in the playoffs. Would you wait next season? I know it's only two guys, but I don't know.
Do I expect them to get right back in the playoffs? I don't know. Goaltending, and they made a good step today. I think Beniers had that sophomore slump season, and Biz, you even texted it to me. He needed some help, and you bring over Stevenson, whose best part of his game is his motor. That's Beniers' best part of his game too. Now you got two guys that can fly up the middle, and a guy who's won, a guy who's been there. Montour just won. Same thing we're kind of talking about, that you're bringing in these guys who've been there that are still like have a lot of great hockey left. I think Stevenson's number. What was the final AAV on that?
6.25.
Yeah, maybe off this year a little high for me, but I already talked about the going rate for what you've done, and being a cup champ adds even a little bit more. I mean, you think back to when they did win, I think he was point per game player in the playoffs for 20 points in 22 games, and now you got a guy who's able to know how the West is played, know how to go up against the big guns in that conference, and then Montour, the way he moves the puck. I think the year was a little bit disappointment, but when you come back from injury, 20 games in, whatever it was, it's always a battle. You're always kind of playing catch-up, you feel like. And yes, OEL took his spot on the power play, but when he goes in and he's with Vince Dunn and they're snapping it around, he'll have all the confidence knowing he was given money that they want him there, and it's a good step. But I'm not at all ready to say I see them easily hopping back in the playoffs as you did.
Going to Montour, I think if he lands in a place with his play from the year prior and this year, I think that $7 million will be a fine deal over the course of it. You know what I'm saying? Maybe provide a little bit more offense, better defensively, and just really get his feet underneath him to where he was a few years ago. I think it's a huge add. And like you said, Whit, I texted in the group chat, like Beniers is a little smaller and undersized, and he's going to eventually catch up and get thicker and be able to handle that pace along with the physicality of maybe being in that number one role. But for the meantime, like, you're looking at that Western Conference and the number one center that you have to go up against night in and night out. It just be a little bit nice to get Beniers a breather where, some nights that may be his matchup, but not so much where he's on an island. Because if you had to play another full season against those guys as the number one guy, you got to worry about confidence at a certain point. And you got this champion in Chandler Stevenson, who I thought was one of their more underappreciated, underrated players during the course of that Stanley Cup run, where he really elevated his play. So I think he's going to add a ton to that lineup, and it'll be a great guy for Beniers to learn off of as well. And you touched on his skating, right? Like, if you want to compete in today's game, you got to play at a certain level and pace. He might not wow you with his high-end offense, but just how much he's able to cover the ice from a 200-foot game perspective. I like the signing all day long, and it also gives him an opportunity to go see if he can get to that next level. Because you're under the shadow of Jack Eichel and who was their second line center last year. I feel like Chandler Stevenson was kind of that number 3 guy, where they did they had Wild Bill in there in some cases, and I'm drawing a blank on who they most of the time had in that second. And then of course they have Hurdle now, who I would imagine that jumps in that role. So it's a good day to be a Seattle Kraken fan.
The Montour signing was getting like chirped a little bit. The fact that he's 30 and he's making over 7 till he's 37. I mean, you when you had the year they had, they got to bring in something. They got to bring more help. The overpayment stuff, yeah, I think there's a lot of times where you look back and you're like, that was a tough deal. But you got to give a go. You got to give it a go. It's like there was nothing else out there for him, so they got a guy that they believe 2 years ago was his game and will be for the next 3-4 seasons as opposed to this year. Coming off shoulder surgery. That's people say he's coming off shoulder surgery. He's 30. Well, all right. Well, now he'll be good. The doctors are pretty solid these days. It's not like when they operate on my foot 15 times. I think Montour's got a lot of great hockey in him.
All right, boys, going a little further up the coast, the Pacific. Vancouver brings in Jake DeBrusk from the Bruins, 7-year, $38.5 million deal, and Dan Heinen, 2-year, $4.5 million deal. This is a team last year. They made a great run, even though they lost the first couple goaltenders. They feels like they just got to plug a few holes in here. Biz, do you think this is a pretty good day for Vancouver, the first day free agency?
Yeah, and they brought in Sherwood as well over from Nashville, who I think he was top 10 in hits all of last season. So he brings that physical element. I thought he was tremendous in playoffs, and he was very noticeable. And I think sometimes when you play against a guy like that and you see how good he actually is, it makes you respect his game even more. And that's why I think that they went over and got him. I remember talking with Talk after the playoffs were over, and he specifically mentioned this kid's name and how big of a pain in the ass he was on the forecheck and just how hard he battles. As far as Jake DeBrusk, I couldn't be happier for the guy. I think he's a gamer. I think that the contract talks and where the negotiations were over the past couple years, and even when he was a free agent, I think it kind of fucked him up a little bit, where he didn't really feel like he was getting that security provided by the Boston Bruins. Well, I mean, the Vancouver Canucks go out and they do that for him, and I think that they gave him a very healthy contract, and I think that he's going to live up to those expectations because he's a big game player. When you play in Boston, you're used to making playoffs every year, and they need guys who thrive under those moments. And another thing, too, it's like, I think he'll be a good fit if he ends up playing with Petey. I feel like Petey needs that type of guy in his line where he's a little bit grittier, right? A little bit more of a puck hound and not afraid to get to the blue paint. So it'll be a nice little contrast for him. And I also liked Heinen's game, too. I think he's a fast little water bug, and he's got a lot to provide. So maybe with what they lost out in the Gensel sweepstakes, because I heard that they were one of the teams talking to Jake Gensel, Vancouver, they have a lot of nice consolation prizes where they never really had to go out and give this massive bag, right? With Sherwood, as we mentioned, Heinen, the fact that they were able to lock in Dakota Joshua for under $4 million at what, I think you got 3.25. So they've really replenished this group, and I think that they have a lot to build off of with these moves. And Jake DeBrusk being a Western Canadian kid, I feel like he'll fit right in, and it's going to be a smooth transition. So bravo to the Vancouver Canucks, who I thought were another team that really won free agency. And maybe people will say that Roenick deal was maybe like a slight overpayment, but with where the D market's at, I think that they got everybody locked in at good rates.
I saw a tweet comparing the DeBrusk contract to Hyman's deal. I think it's the exact same deal. And their
Zach
numbers,
Hyman?
Yeah. And their numbers before their numbers in Toronto and the numbers in Boston that when they went over. Now, playing with Connor McDavid is a completely different story. And Hyman's, what he's done is nobody saw that coming. But as a Canucks fan, you're looking at it like, all right, we need Pettersson to be that superstar. Right, he's got to be the guy that got all that dough, that had the 100-point season, that showed that he was a top player in the league, and that can. They're no doubt thinking that DeBrusk could play with him, drive the net. When you said gritty, I think someone that's like going in and getting the puck, feeding Petey, like the things that he needs. That was perfectly said. And Hyman's kind of similar, right? Like dirt dogs in on the forecheck. So I do see the similarities between them both. If he ever popped off for 50, I'd be surprised. But I think every playoff, even though Bruins fans would occasionally get maybe a little frustrated with DeBrusk in the regular season, I think he had 2 27-goal seasons, or 125, 127. He was always showing up in the playoffs, and he always scored playoff goals. And going into where Talk is, that's exactly what he wants. I also like on D, yeah, they lost Zadorov, but they're still enormous back there. They got Myers. They bring in Vinny Desharnais, who kind of sucks to see him leave Edmonton. But even though he wasn't able to be in the lineup as they went on the run against Dallas, and when Broberg came in and kind of changed their their breakout issues when Desharnais was on the ice. He's the Vancouver-style D-man. You saw it in the second round. Watching the Oilers play them, they're just in your face, they're physical, and that's what Talk wants back there, along with Quinn Hughes buzzing around and Hronek, who did have a good offensive season. So I thought it was a good day. I think DeBrusk will fit right in there, and I really wouldn't be surprised to see him get 25 to 30 for a good amount of those years. If Pettersson's playing his game, no doubt, you go to the net. I love that. I love that deal. People kind of question the number. I didn't. I was happy. As we say, Biz, we want these guys to get paid.
Fucking rights.
Absolutely. Pasha's New Jersey Devils made a couple of moves. Brought in forward Stefan Noesen, 3-year, $8.25 million deal. Defenseman Brett Pesce from Carolina, 6-year, $33 million deal. Nice payday for him. Defenseman Brendan Dillon, a buddy of the program, 3 years, $12 million. Nice little thumper on the back end. Should Pasha be happy with these moves? I know we're not going to bring him on today.
I would think Pasha's very excited. The Stefan Noesen coming over from Carolina, he came out of nowhere. I mean, I think he was in the minors 2 or 3 years ago. He's a nice impact player on the bottom six. The defense makeover, though, is what's probably the best thing for Devils fans, is that you have Hughes and you have Nemec and you have this young talent, and then you bring in physical Dillon, Pesce, who it'll be interesting to see Pesce when he's not in that Carolina system. That is something that I think can maybe hide a couple warts on guys, is how good they are team defensively. Now, the argument would be you're playing man-on-man, so you got to be able to cover your guy. You got to be able to move. And Pesce's shown that he's able to do that great on the PK. But even bringing in Markstrom, I consider kind of part of this. And Fitzgerald really looked at it. This year was a fluke, right? They lost to the shit teams. They beat the good teams. They couldn't get a save. Hughes got injured. It's like, let's reset. Let's go out, bring guys in that we know can help us get to that next level, because that is the trajectory that team's on. And I think a day like today is only going to make it even better based on the young talent they have and then adding in what they did.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of want to run the disclaimer and hear what that fucking idiot has to say.
I would run the disclaimer. We know he's just going to love every move and every guy gone wasn't any good, but I'll run the disclaimer.
He's not talking unless we do.
Warning, the following statements are about to be made by a deranged Devils fan. The views expressed are his and his only. Take everything you hear with a grain of salt because, remember, he is a deranged Devils fan.
Well, Mr. Pasha.
What's up, fellas? You summed it up perfectly, I thought. I thought Fitzy addressed exactly what this team needed. They have all the sexy skill in the world, but they need some meat and potatoes, some guys that can protect the house. And Pesce, really good defender, PK, one of the better defenders on defending off the rush, which the Devils really struggled with last season. Then you got Dillon, also PK guy, big, strong guy. So I think that combined with Markstrom, like you said, really going to tighten things up and then kind of allow the young guns to get up there and fly and create offense.
Pasha, the reason that Pesce was so good at fucking breaking up zone entries is because he had back pressure. Are those skill guys, those fancy players who don't know how to play a 200-foot game in New Jersey, going to start creating a little back pressure? So
Here comes the Heeshear talk. Here comes the Heeshear Bergeron talk.
Well, he's the only guy. He's the only guy.
That's a question for Sheldon Keefe. That's a question for Keefe. I think he did a good job getting that out of the forwards in Toronto. You saw Matthews, how strong his defensive game was, and even Marner's defensive game. So if you can kind of do the same thing and get those guys to play solid defensively, I think Devils will be in really good shape.
What happens to you? What happens to you if they don't make playoffs next season?
We'll have to give that some thought and come up with a counterpoint for you. But I'll make a little bet.
I mean if they don't,
you're not going to fulfill it.
He got he didn't get
you
it tattooed.
You want to go down the not fulfilling.
You should have to get a mushroom cut on the top of that ugly noggin of yours.
I actually grew up with a mushroom cut, so I'll go back to my OG days.
Yeah. I need to see a picture of Pasha with the mushroom cut. Pasha, analytics, are they in your favor in both these signings? Like, what would the people dogging maybe the Dillon deal or the Pesce deal say?
Yeah, what do the charts say they should make?
Based on what I was reading on kind of like all the analytics people, they felt both deals were slight overpays. That could kind of in the last couple of years them maybe not look so great, but I think you kind of deal with that down the road. I love both deals. One thing though, I heard the Devils were basically on the goal line with Marchessault, who I thought would be an unbelievable ad, and then I guess Nashville swept in last second. So if there's one more order of business for Fitzy, I think he needs a winger to play with Jack who can put the puck in the net. I was pumped. I thought Marchessault would be a great addition. for many of the reasons you guys mentioned earlier in the show, all the cup winning pedigree, things like that. So Fitzy's still got to bring in a guy, I think. I've heard rumblings of maybe Nikolai Ehlers. We've heard rumblings of Natchez. They have a lot of draft capital and stuff that they can trade. Side note, that Holtz deal, I don't like that at all.
Wow, they moved away from your boy. They gave up early.
I really don't know. Yeah, I don't know what they were doing, Schmid and Holtz for Paul Cotter. I mean, that fits into them trying to get bigger and meaner, but I don't like giving up on Holtz. Like, he's finally free from Lindy now, who wasn't a fan of him. Given a crack under Keith. Let's see if Keith can help turn around. So, I love most moves Fitzy makes. Head scratching one on that one, but who knows? Let's see. The offseason's not done yet. Let's see if he can bring in a scoring winger and be what Holtz was supposed to be. I don't know.
All right, my friend. Thanks for jumping on. By the way, how'd you get home safe the other night after I ran into you and memes? Whatever that night it was, Saturday, Friday night, whatever you guys are feeling.
7:30 a.m. flight out of Vegas. Those are not smooth sailing, but happy to be home. It was a hell of a rip with you boys the last couple of weeks.
Hell of a rip as well. Well, we'll see you later, my friend. We'll be in touch. Biz, your boys made a couple of big moves. Tree living, showing up that D. Chris Tanev, 6 years, $27 million. Great signing there. OEL, your other boy, 4 years, $14 million. Brought in goalie Anthony Stolaz, who was pretty great for Florida last year. Regular season, and the one time they needed the playoffs, I think. 2 years, $5 million. Biz, the Leafs Cup next year or what?
Kind of like Nashville situation. A lot of criticism online. Like, they didn't address their needs. It's like, when have they never needed a guy like Chris Tanev in the locker room? I said that at the fucking deadline when he didn't go there and he ended up going over to Dallas. Like, that was a guy that I wanted. Yeah, is he getting older? Absolutely. But on a Stanley Cup winning team, he's a number 3-4 type shutdown D-man who can kill penalties. He's going to block shots. He's going to be a warrior in the D zone. He's going to be a cycle buster, and that's exactly what they needed. And then to get him at – people were a little concerned about the length of the deal, but I think in order to get him down to that AAV, they had to present him with that. And we all know it's not easy playing in Toronto, so he probably wanted that type of security and that type of money. Few jokes in the group chat as to, oh, great, they just got their new whipping boy. Shut the fuck up to everybody in our Chiclets group chat. We got a winner on our side. And then going over to OEL, Brad Treliving helped sign that contract when he was with the Arizona Coyotes. He helped draft Oliver. This is a winner. I'm so happy with the rebound season he had in Florida, and to get him at $3.5 million, if he's bringing to the table what he brought this year in Florida, that's an absolute bargain, because he ended up taking over that power play. I think he could step into that role where nothing against Morgan Riley, but I believe that Oliver, high-end offense, and what I've seen from him, this guy's had he had back-to-back 20-goal seasons. So playing with those skilled guy in Toronto's, I think that he could alleviate a lot of pressure off of Morgan Riley having to be that number one guy on the power play, and he could step into that role to where they'll complement each other perfectly. So to the fan base saying they didn't address their needs, I think that can be done when JT is off the books. Yes, do they need to go solidify that bottom six and have guys who can help contribute more than they have in the past? I actually thought that last year in playoffs that their bottom six was pretty solid. Do they need to get better in order to be a Stanley Cup champion? Absolutely. But in my opinion, a great start to free agency and solidifying that back end, in which was leaking a little bit of oil at times last year. And Oliver is also a guy who can be a puck-moving defenseman, and getting it into that forward's hands a little bit cleaner probably was a priority, and then that's going to happen as well. So happy with the moves they made. And the other guy up front who they locked in, Max Domi. I think that he fucking played incredible come playoff time, and he deserved that contract, and that's a place that he belongs in Leafland. He was born to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. He was awesome in that face-off circle when he had to step in as a centerman. He can do so moving forward as a bit of a Swiss Army knife, or back to wing where he played most of the year. So another good one. And also a guy who plays with a lot of sandpaper. Like, he's a fucking piece of shit. And when he's playing like a piece of shit, I feel like that's when he's at his best. And you saw it against the Boston Bruins all series long, and also during the course of the season as well.
Mitch Marner needs a little Max Domi in him, I think. Just the whole way he talked about the city, signing in Toronto, how he's willing to take less money, the way he plays gritty for the city. It's just, if Mitch Marner just had 10% of what Max Domi had, he'd just be such a better player.
He's getting it. They're doing a little bit of shock treatment up in Muskoka with him, and he's going to find that bite, and they're going to sign him with.
Domi had an unreal video he released when he signed. It was like him on Jordan Belfort and Wolf of Wall Street's face. Like our memes, Morningstar, Dale might have made that thing for him. It's just him saying, I ain't fucking leaving, and then it rips through like the pictures and videos of old Leafs legends, a picture of the skyline. It was a pretty cool way to announce that you're re-signing. You said you thought it was a great day. I don't know if I can give you that. I do think the D looks way better and more solid and tougher to play against. But if you think back to the first round, it wasn't the D that was the issue. And they're bringing back basically the same forward crew, minus Bertuzzi. Now, you got to think that they're looking like, all right, maybe Easton Cowan, this kid who lit up the O, can step right in and be a contributor. I think Nick Robertson, he's not re-signed.
No,
there,
he's done. I don't think he's coming back.
So, I mean, granted, that's not like he wasn't like a huge part of their top two lines at all, but I think that the gripe from Leafs fans being it looks like we are bringing back a very, very similar, if not the same team up front that couldn't even get out of the first round.
I know, but I don't think you can I don't think you can seriously address the issue until you get JT's numbers off the books.
Yeah.
And including what they decide to end up doing with Marner. Like, we're talking about potentially having $22 million in cap space more next offseason. And maybe they're looking forward. What's the crop of free agency looking like next year? So for what they had to work with, I think that they did a pretty good job given the situation. So that's why I said what I said.
Tanev, awesome right off the jump. I think the no move clause where you can't buy him out, you can't send him down. He's a little older, and just the way he plays, he can get beat down a little bit. Little scary, but it is somebody that Leafs fans for a while have wanted. So then when you get him, it's hard to then be like, oh, well, I don't like the number. I don't like the term. It's kind of, you got him, though. At least give him a chance before you're all over the guy.
My biggest issue with them is the fact that they haven't had any homegrown defensemen besides Morgan Riley come in and be a major factor. Like,
well, Liljegren re-signed, right? What did he get?
Yeah, okay. I don't know, but he ain't fucking moving the needle. Like, I
maybe he reaches the next level this year. He can skate.
Yeah. Okay, I've been saying
Liljegren got 2 years, $3 million AAV.
So yeah, let's hope.
You're gonna need him to make a step.
I don't mind him, but from what I've seen so far, he's not the guy. He ain't the next Alex Pietrangelo. Like, we need one of those guys. Where the fuck are those guys at? Where's my Haskin? Where's my
fifth
McCarr?
overall? They're fourth overall.
Where's my Moritz Seider? Huh? Where is he?
He's a top 5 pick, brother.
Moritz Seider, he's in Detroit, which is where Patrick Kane is going to be for another year. Biz, 1 year, $4 million deal. He signed.
Showtime.
Also brought in goalie Cam Talbot, goalie Jack Hamill, and defenseman Eric Gustafson. But, I mean, Kane back to Detroit, and I don't think there's any big surprise there. I don't think he was ready to go back to Chicago, kind of take another kick at the can. But, I don't know, relatively, somewhat quiet day for the Red Wings. No, Biz?
Yeah, I think that they got to more so concern themselves with getting Seider locked back in, Lucas Raymond. They did a great job last year in giving Dylan Larkin that contract, which, I talked about a lower number initially, but I think he even exceeded what he got as far as expectations. They got DeBrincat. So right now I feel like they're chilling, and they got to see with what all these guys they've drafted who are ready to make these big leaps are going to do before they go out and spend ridiculous money on any type of free agents. Like you talked about that is it Edvinson, the defenseman, the big fucker? Like, they got some really good players in the pipeline, and I think it was Chicago that you mentioned having a lot of up-and-coming pedigree. I think that Detroit is in that topic of conversation as well as the big goalie that played for the Oil Kings. Is it Costa,
right?
Yeah, Costa. So they're not doing anything drastic right now. They're playing the long game to have sustainable success. Stevie Y knows what the fuck he's doing.
I think that's some of the complaint from Wings fans I'm hearing from is it's 8 years in a row out of the playoffs, and they trade Wallman and they don't really get anything back in terms of signing. Now there's these Trouba rumblings, and I think Drury addressed it today that he's going to keep it private, like what they've said to each other. But he mentioned how much he respects him as a person and a player. I don't know if that's going to end up going down, but you would think they would have a little more going on, like a trade-wise possibility, because a little bit of an underwhelming day, I'd say. I mean, it's awesome news having Kane back. That's great. I think with bonuses, it can end up being 6.5, like games played bonuses, making the playoffs or winning around. But I think fans are getting anxious there, and I know. And when you have a July 1st where you wanted to at least get in the mix a little bit more than you did, it can be frustrating. Now, you mentioned all these guys they have due coming up, and Wallman, maybe they do look to Edmonton as kind of taking his job in the top 4. But I wouldn't say after today it's like Wings fans are celebrating.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice couple of moves, but yeah, nothing to get too crazy about. Washington Capitals, they made a big move. Picked up Jacob Chikrin from Ottawa, sent back Dick Jensen in a 3rd and 26. Also signed Matt Roy, 7-year, $38.5 million deal. Brandon Duhaime, 2 years, $3.7 million. And Connor McMichael, well, he's restricted free agent, 2-year, $4.2 million deal. Another team, is this more like just kind of house cleaning? Although Chikrin's a big deal, Biz, what was your take on that? I know you were high on this guy a couple years ago in Arizona. Ottawa didn't seem to like the taste of him, I guess, after a little while.
Yeah, no, I think they did a good job of rebolstering that back end. I mean, they got Carlson there, and then outside of that, it kind of drops off. So to bring in 2 names like that, I think is huge. And I think that they want to be a competent team going into these final years of Ovi's goal chase, and I think they've done just that. And as well as getting rid of Darcy Kemper's contract, which they weren't happy with, and especially the way that I'm drawing a blank on the goalie who had a hell of a year.
Lindgren.
So yeah, I think that it was a solid day. I think that I think people were definitely surprised with how active Washington was based on expectations. So good for them, and a couple good guys.
I think that you bring in Logan Thompson, right? They got Mangiapane. They bring in the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. I think Matthew Royce, or is it Roy? Sorry.
Roy. He played at Michigan Tech. I played with him. I was actually...
He's good.
He's very good. I was just, whoa, that was a big jump in number. What is he making? Over 5? He's making over 5, right?
Yeah, I think that he's really good defensively. And
Sportsnet said he's one of the best, analytically, one of the best shutdown defensemen in the game.
Yeah, sleeper.
So that Brandon Duhaime plays edgy. I thought he'd be better in Colorado, but it's a way different looking team at least. Like you made the playoffs somehow. Nobody knows really how it happened, and then the Rangers took care of you pretty easily. But you made some legit changes, so at least you're like, all right, we're not okay with what happened. I guess Oshie would be retiring or go on LTIR, so you got more money there if that happens. You got Backstrom's LTIR money, so at least they went out and tried to address some things. It's not like, all right, as I've said, it kind of seems like Washington is playing out the Ovechkin goal record, and that's kind of what I've been talking about this past season, even though they did get in the playoffs. That's not how they're looking at it. They decided to go out, spend a bunch of dough, make a bunch of different moves, and they got something cooking. I think Logan Thompson will be really good. Who knows if Lindgren can kind of repeat what he did this year, but I thought it was like not an amazing day, but definitely not a bad day.
I wouldn't be surprised if Ryan Leonard flips now. I mean, they're making moves, and when you look at it from his perspective, it's like they've now made enough moves where they're going to compete next year, and you can get this kid in on Ovi's historic run. Like, why would he go back to BC? He's proven everything he has to. I think he could be in Washington next season.
Seems like a lot of guys in the mix that have to have proven years. Like, I think Chikrin's got a lot to prove. I think Dubois got a lot to prove, and we much like those guys who are pretty pissed off about not getting re-signed in March or so, and Stamkos in Nashville. These guys, you want guys having some spunk and some things to prove going into a big year.
Yeah, Whit, your Oilers made a couple of moves for next year. Jeff Skinner, 1 year, $3 million after his buyout. That's a hell of a play to pick up for that price, I think. Victor Arvidsson, 2 years, $8 million, and bringing Corey Perry back for a year, $1.4 million. I think they had a few more holes to fill, but as an Oilers fan, Whit, you got to like these.
And just as Pasha texted the group chat with, Henrique locks in for another 2 years.
Rico. Yeah,
Henrique
Rico,
comes back.
Deal.
You got Brown coming back. I love Arvidsson. Arvidsson's always been, now granted, they've played the Kings 3 years in a row in the first round. They go just in your face, waterbug, can score. I love that signing. I think Connor Brown coming back, I think it was 1 year, $1 million. Everyone, like the fans, just absolutely love that after his playoff. I tweeted something about when he re-signed, and all the people were sending me his advanced numbers and his wins above replacement stat. And it's like, well, dude, yeah, he had a bad regular season. He was fucking awesome in the playoffs. Why wouldn't that continue? He's not a new guy on the team. He's comfortable there. I love that. And the D it's a little bit of work left to be done there. But if you can't be happy with what went on today as an Oilers fan, Skinner and Arvidsson, while being undersized, dude, they're going to play with, when you play with Leon and Connor, dude, it is a different ball game. And Jeff Skinner at that number, with the numbers he's put up the last few seasons, the joke is, Edmonton might miss the playoffs now. No. We're bringing Skinner to the promised land. Jeff Skinner's going to go from most games played without a playoff game directly to a Stanley Cup. So the Oilers, awesome first day. When you get afraid of losing certain guys, and then Henrique comes back, Brown comes back, you didn't think necessarily that would happen. I don't know about Janmark. He didn't sign anywhere yet, did he? Or did I have that wrong?
Janmark got 3 years with them at 1.45 with the
They
Edmonton
all came.
Oilers.
Yeah, see, I didn't even do it. I'm missing Janmark. It's unbelievable. I am actually over the moon right now. I think that this was an awesome day coming off a tough Game 7 loss. Everyone wants to be there. Nobody wants to go anywhere. They want to be a part of the greatest comeback story, the way the Panthers did it. Lose in the finals and go get it done.
Beautifully summarized.
And the Campbell buyout made total sense. I think that just kind of had to be done. It kind of sucks for him. I ran into him during the finals. For anyone who knows him, he's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. He's like so genuinely nice. He's like, I'm looking forward to the summer. Just he didn't know what was going to happen. He ends up getting bought out, get a fresh start. So kind of a tough move, but now you just wonder who's going to be the GM. You wonder if you can get Leon signed this summer. There's a lot of questions that remain to be seen. I know Biz mentioned a former Blackhawks GM possibly getting the job. He was actually reinstated, the guy that I'm talking about, along with Joel Quenneville, and I think that could obviously go down pretty soon from the sound of it. But a great first day for the Oilers.
All right, another couple of you guys' old team. Pittsburgh Penguins, they're bringing in former Boston Bruin Matt Grzelcyk, 1 year, $2.75 million deal. Also picked up our other buddy, Kevin Hayes, in a trade. Got Hazy in a second for future considerations. And Anthony Beauvillier, 1 year, $1.25 million. I'll go to you on this one. You're going to miss Grizz. I know he had a nice little run here in Boston, but it seemed like the right might have been on the wall a little bit.
Yeah, definitely the right time to go, but I wanted to ask you guys, I also saw some news that the Penguins are working on an extension for Sidney Crosby. What number do you think that's going to fall in? I think they said it's going to be around the 3-year range.
If they're going to be as good of a team as they have been or the last couple years, I think he should take them to the cleaners and make 13, 14, as much as he can, the full 20% that you're allowed to make as an individual on a team based on the CBA. Because, I mean, I look at these moves, guys, and that's a vanilla hockey team. I don't think they're going to make playoffs again at this point unless Sidney Crosby has another gear to give us, which I think that they've asked enough of him last year in the performance that he had. So none of these jump out at me. I've also heard that they're shopping Smith potentially. So it's just like really confusing times for me in the Pittsburgh Penguins.
He went to the Rangers.
Yeah, he just got traded to the Rangers.
Oh, okay. There you go. I never saw that pop up. We got a lot of things coming in. The rumor boys. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy for Hazy. Maybe find himself in a better situation and getting to play with Crosby as we did is a treat in itself. So hopefully he's able to have some luck there.
Yeah, I was actually talking to him, and I think that he had a pretty good relationship with Mike Sullivan over at the Worlds. He liked how he played, and that deal ends up going down. And, I mean, people are all over Pittsburgh so far, kind of giving him shit. It is hard after last year to see not any major upgrades. You just gotta hope. Penguins fans just gotta hope that Karlsson has another gear and Malkin. It's I know it's hard to think of that team right now as if they couldn't get in this year, being able to switch it around. But I hope they do. Fuck, I just think Crosby deserves to have a lot more when he's finishing out this career, and maybe 3 times 10. Yeah, he'd be nice to not take 20%. Anything under 20% of the team cap is basically him saying
they should be giving him ownership, like Mario, for what he's done for that fucking team. Although they probably wouldn't pay him the full amount, just like Mario. Fucking scumbags.
Well, hopefully they'll just pay him up front anyways. But one more team note here before we bring up the draft. Philadelphia Flyers, they signed Matvei Michkov to his ELC, Russian player. That's a huge development for the Flyers fans. And also bought out Cam Atkinson. So a couple moves for the Flyers there. But, boys, we were at the draft last week at the Sphere, Friday night. This building, it's a marvel like we've heard about, just a building. I don't think any of you guys have ever been in anything like it. the whole 100 feet high ceiling, Biz. It was kind of trippy. I mean, maybe a little more for you than everybody else there, though, Biz.
Is it only 100 feet? I feel like it's way higher than 100
No, it feels
feet.
like, I mean, 100.
I felt like 100 stories, dude.
I mean,
is that an actual?
Everyone looked like ants when we were up in the top level. 100 feet.
Well, the ceiling goes all the way up. The floor. I've never been in a building anything like that. I don't know anything to compare it to. You think of the Omni Theater here in Massachusetts, it's nothing like that. It's like you're in a globe, but just a phenomenal experience to witness that, Biz. I know you had a few comments.
I'll just say that I think that you can consider it one of the 7th wonders of the world that are man-made. Just incredible execution. Like, I walked in and I was blown away at not only how clean it was, but just the overall setup. I was able to go down to the floor, which was as trippy as shit. And if I ever did a concert there, I'd probably want to hang out there. And then all the way to the top where you get to see the full screen, right? It's not as overwhelming up top as it is when you're down below. So bravo to the NHL for throwing it there. I think that they should do it there every year, even though moving forward, they're not bringing the round tables. It's just going to be simply the prospects. I think that it should be done there every year. My only complaint about the full day is if you were live there and when the teams were on the clock, and let's say a team had 7 minutes, there was a lot of time where the screen wasn't being used. So for about 3 minutes in a row, it would just be a visual of the list of teams and then the picks that had already been picked that were up there. So then from more rumors that were circulating or conversation, still don't know if this is true, the teams, if they wanted to have a special video or graphics playing on there while their time was up, they had to pay extra money for it.
Is that true?
That's the word that is going around where I'm like, man, like they paid to rent the space. Let's build this thing up and make it an even better live experience where, when the Kraken's going, let's have all the tentacles going of the octopus or whatever the fuck you call it, and play highlight videos of the past and present where sometimes it'd just be a graphic of like who their leading scorers were from the year before. So really didn't think that they utilized the screen enough from the live experience. It probably played out different on television, but definitely could have made a better show of it if they would have, Dolan specifically, allowed the teams to use the screen to the best of their ability with whatever. Like Philadelphia was up and then there was a skyline, which wasn't even Philly's skyline, and it was just the Flyers logo. I want to see the Broad Street Bullies going at it on this massive screen. I want to see the history of their team, them hoisting their cup, Bobby Clark smiling while raising it with no teeth. Like, give me action while I'm tripping on mushrooms at the Sphere during the NHL draft.
That's probably why Dana White came out and said that when the UFC goes there, what the NHL did will look like children with crayons. I think that was his quote.
He said it's going to be like fucking kids playing with crayons was his quote.
The experience of being in there was great, but you're right. Like, I was wondering if we'd get a little bit more of the videos from the Grateful Dead where you're like looking all around at different team videos, or I like actually the Kraken octopus, different things that would have maybe made the Sphere more like it is for shows. I guess that's the difference between U2, Fish, the Grateful Dead, and then the NHL holding a draft. It was still awesome to be in there, though. The only thing it made me do is want to go back and see a show there, because the entire building, when you're walking up to it, you know, as Ari said, that 100 feet seems way taller, and it's this enormous black sphere you walk into. It's just they had about 50 different bars in that place too. The place was completely packed. There was no lines for anything anywhere. I was amazed at like the ability for how easy, like the I guess what would be the term?
Accessibility.
Yeah, accessibility and just convenience to just be in there. The draft overall, like. The third overall pick, Beckett, is it Seneke? Is that how I say it?
Correct.
That kid's reaction. He goes, holy fuck. Oh my God. Holy shit. He had no clue he was going third overall. It was the most evident. I was actually thinking back to at my draft, my buddy of mine, Mike Morris, is actually picked, I think, 27th by the Sharks. He wasn't expecting. He was like out getting popcorn or something like that. Like, it reminded me of that, just having no clue you were going to go there and the embrace with his family was great. And then Biz, you said Donors was talking, and that kid's unbelievable talent, right?
Yeah, he said that he grew 6 inches pretty quick. And he said, like, just if you look at his like hands and his head, he's gonna grow and he might even grow a couple more inches to 6'4", 6'5", and then he's gonna widen out. And when that's the case, and they have him and that Leo Carlson, they're gonna have some big boys up front, kind of like when they had Perry and Getzlaf come in. So he also said that outside of Celebrini, probably the best player in the draft in his opinion, and his high-end skill could end up paying off where he ends up being the best player in the draft that was taken. So I know maybe a shock to him going that high, but definitely not a shock to some of the people that I ended up talking to. And I guess from the overall conversation of talking to people at the draft, sneakily one of the deepest drafts in the last little bit here. And I think the NHL needed a draft like that where you had some pretty big names even go a little bit later in that first round, like that Zeev Bouillon. I feel like that was a steal for the Minnesota Wild at 12, who they moved up to grab him, didn't they? Didn't they move? They moved.
Yeah, they moved up one pick to grab him. Yeah,
one pick to end up securing that. And as you guys know, as the list goes on, that the one kid who was drafted, Saginaw Spirit player, drafted. I think he went to the Calgary Flames. Apparently, he was like a baby genius. Where he graduated high school. Oh, yeah, he graduated high school at like 11 or 12 years old. The guy is just an absolute brain. So just a lot of cool young players are going to be coming in the league, and it's exciting to see. And the fact that also Utah ended up picking Iginla, where I heard that Calgary was trying to move up to pick him. So just a lot of cool storylines coming out of this year's draft.
That was Zane Pareka you mentioned there, the D from Saginaw, and he graduated high school at 16 years old. Pretty crazy.
He flies. I think he had over 30 goals, 90 points this year for Saginaw. Like, seems just run and gun. Like, I guess what would be a good comp? I mean, I don't know. I can't even think of anyone right now. Carlson, maybe it seems like I saw some like a highlight package. I was like, holy shit, 6 shot. So that was a good pick. I was very impressed when Billy Guerin traded up. Like, it was like, all right, one spot away. We saw him at the Frozen Four in Minnesota, Zeev Bouillon. I love that. Thought he would go a little sooner. Pasha's boys picked this Anton Siliev, I think it is. Silayev. He played in Torpedo this year. He's like 6'8", 6'7", 6'8". And things I've read and talking to people, like, he skates like he's like 6 feet, 5'11". So I don't know, Pasha immediately goes, oh, look, this Twitter feed doesn't like his analytics in the KHL. I'm like, oh, my God. I think you're going to love this pick because he hammers guys, too. And at 18 was playing 20 minutes a night on a good KHL team. So just yeah, you're right, Biz. Bunch of different storylines, as is the case every year with the draft.
RA, is there anyone outside of the guys we mentioned that were surprising to you? Like, who did you like as far as draft picks?
Well, I mean, as far not so much as picks, but I thought bringing in Jumbo Joe was pretty good when they drafted Macklin. That was a nice touch, for former first-round pick with the new one. Celine Dion showing up for the Montreal Canadiens. She got a real nice applause. And also, I don't know if you noticed this, Biz, when the guys come out, the players come out, with their suits, taking their suit coats off. By the way, I think the three-piece suit is making a comeback, by the way, Biz. I've seen a lot of them that night.
Bill Zito brought it back.
Yeah, they were looking sharp. And I don't know if you noticed, when they took those jackets off, they handed off to Vegas showgirls who were taking their jackets off, which I thought that was a nice little Vegas touch there. And also, I think players had their own individual songs, so when they were picked, there were unique songs coming up. Because Macklin had Fleetwood Mac song.
Return of the Mac.
Yeah, that would have been nice. We're going to bring him on, Charlie. But I thought those were nice little, Vegas influence touches. And speaking of Vegas, San Jose, where Macklin's going to be going, a couple of moves they made, a couple guys he's going to be playing with next year. Alex Wenberg, 2 years, $10 million. Tyler Toffoli, 4 years, $24 million. I think with this sort of indication, these guys know good things are on the horizon in San Jose. I mean, they got Smith last year, Celebrini this year. This team is going to be an absolute powerhouse very soon.
Trying to attract some of these younger guys to maybe even come in a little bit earlier. I think that, you alluded to Leonard in Washington, where you show a lot more competence and not the AHL team that they put on the ice last year. This is something that can move in the right direction very quickly, and why not do it with some solid seasoned vets? I kept hearing a lot of teams were trying to move up in the where Montreal picked at 5 to grab that Russian kid who set or broke Kucherov's record at SKA.
Demidov.
The second tier team.
I think it's MHL or something, like the junior league over there.
The second tier team. So apparently a bunch of teams were calling them to try to move up, and they were adamant about selecting him. And that was another guy that whose name I kept hearing pop up.
I thought the best moment of the draft to me was actually on day 2, and I don't know if you guys saw the clip. It kind of went viral today. Aaron Kiviraha from the Minnesota Wild, when he was drafted, I think it was the 4th round, he went up to Billy G, gave him a hug, and was like, man, like, you just made the absolute steal of the fucking draft. And you could see Billy after they filmed him, and he's like, I fucking love that, sat that back down at the table and was like, boys, this guy just told me we made the fucking steal of the draft. So you love to see that.
I said the same thing to Pittsburgh when they picked me in the 4th.
They're like,
how many guys do you think say
then you
that,
actually
though,
stole something from the draft table. That was the only problem. I think that Chicago also offered next year's first-round pick unprotected for Columbus's 4th. And you imagine that they wanted to take the Demidov. I think there were some Blackhawks fans, Demidov, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but apparently there is a chance he is like a future Kaprizov superstar type player. Did you see how he handed his jacket to the girl? He like pigeon tossed her as he gave her the jacket. It's like the Kachucks to RA. I think that Chicago picking that D-man though made a lot of sense. I kept saying that I found it hard to believe he was better than Buyem after what I watched. But the size of them, and then what everyone said, offensively, defensively, they are going to be a great team, Chicago. I think San Jose right now, it's exciting. You get a guy like Toffoli and new coach Ryan Wasowski. It's similar, like you're still a ways away in my mind.
And speaking of Celebrini, we're going to be throwing it over to him in probably right around now. I was blown away by this kid and how beyond his years he is. San Jose is in very good shape. This kid's the total package and very hockey focused. I always ask these younger guys, like, what kind of hobbies do you have away from the rink? And a lot of these new guys, it's like, I don't. I'm hockey. And that's exactly how this kid is. And I think that he's going to be able to make an impact very soon in his NHL career. And he's going to go on to have a big one. So without further ado, let's send it off to this stud, and we appreciate his time. And you already have a fan in me, that's for sure.
He's basically 35 years old somehow. So I think you'll love it and enjoy. Before we continue, I'm here to talk to you about G4, and we got a shoe launch alert. Everyone's favorite golf destination, G4, is dropping their latest G18 golf shoe, and with 2 limited edition colors, you better hurry. It's backed by research for optimal performance and unbeatable comfort. The new G18 keeps your game and style on point. And why not win at both at the same time? It's ultra modern, unique, and features 3 simultaneous levels of traction to keep you extra stable on all types of terrain. When you're playing golf, if you're in the sand, if you're in the desert, if you're standing 1 foot almost in the water, G4's got you covered with the new G18. So check out the G18 golf shoe and plenty of others now at G4. And don't forget, G4.com/chiclets, GFORE.com/chiclets for 10% off your first order.
Well, it's very nice to welcome our next guest to the show. He will very, very likely be taken with the first overall pick by the San Jose Sharks at the 2024 NHL Draft here in Las Vegas after his terrific freshman year at Boston University. I'm sure he's going to have a pretty eventful summer after this, so it's great to welcome to the Spittin Chiclets podcast, Macklin Celebrini. Thanks for joining us, my friend.
No, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
What an honor this is.
Long time. I told him, I go, after the season, buddy, you're coming on. He's like, I'll come on. Then I was like, you're staying at BU one more year. No, we appreciate this, dude. It was incredible seeing you play this year. Had heard so much about you coming in, and then just you exceeded expectations, which is wild considering what they were coming in. So I was more interested in kind of how you picked BU and how you went about deciding to go play for the Terriers and for Pando and how that whole like recruitment process went.
Yeah. Obviously growing up, like Biz knows, we being from Canada, you don't really think about college. Like it's pretty much major juniors. No, like growing up when I was a lot younger, like it was pretty much WHL. Like I just wanted to go to WHL. That's kind of the path that all my friends were taking. So I never really even thought about it. And then when I moved down to San Jose, heard about Shattuck, kind of one thing led to another. This season, like it just kind of became more clear. And once I got kind of presented with this opportunity to go in a year early, I really liked that, like that idea of playing up against like the college players a year early, just getting that exposure in my draft year.
So you believed it was like a higher level of competition? Yeah,
I mean, you can argue it either way, but I feel like the players that I was playing against were like 24, 23, like some guys were 25, like 8 years older than me. So I just feel like from that aspect, like a lot of bigger, stronger players that I was going up against. And I feel like that really helped me.
So, I was going to say, I noticed you play with the Chicago Steel.
Yeah.
And Shane Doan talked about it because I think his son went there as well, where like the development there is crazy. So you were able to obviously make that leap because you were maybe more prepared playing at the UCHL level with Chicago.
Yeah. I mean, there's stories about Chicago, like with Fantilli.
A lot of money there too.
Yeah,
right?
like especially they changed ownerships now, but while I was there, Larry Robbins was still the owner, and he supported us like no other team in the USHL. Like anything we needed, like he was always there for. Like he would help us in whatever we needed. So
yeah. So you mentioned the move to San Jose, and I think a lot of that has to do with your father. And your father's, it's a crazy story. I'd love to get like the in-depth part from you, but worked for the Golden State Warriors, became very close with Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and that's why you guys moved down there. What had he been doing prior to when he ended up getting that job and you moved to California?
He was actually working. So he started off with the Vancouver Whitecaps in the MLS in Vancouver. So he worked with them for a while, 7 years. And then 3 years into his contract with the Whitecaps, he signed with the Canucks. So he worked with them for 4 years before he moved down. He also opened this like physiotherapist center in Burnaby called Fortius.
You mentioned that.
I worked with your uncle there, I think.
Oh, really?
I don't think it was your dad. Don't you have like an uncle?
Yeah, I have an uncle. Yeah.
Yeah, who helped out. He helped you repair my bilateral sports hernia.
Oh, no way.
What's his name again?
Randy?
Yeah, Randy.
Yeah. Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah. Beautiful facility.
Very
like
nice.
State-of-the-art underwater treadmills.
Yeah.
So like basically your best therapy you could get if you tore like an ACL or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like he pretty much helped build that place and oversaw kind of the recoveries that were going on there. And then he got presented this opportunity with San Antonio, the Spurs. And we actually went down there one summer and we kind of checked out they checked out the facilities and stuff like that. But then right after that, Golden State reached out to him. And so he went over there as well. And pretty much one of the factors that went into making that decision was hockey. Like, was there going to be hockey for us? Like
for you and Aiden.
For me, Aiden, and my younger brother RJ. Like, would there be hockey there? Would there be a good program where we could like keep playing and like training? So that was a big thing that went into that. So ultimately, he chose the Golden State Warriors, and then he spent the first year down there by himself. We were still in Vancouver, and then we all lived down there for a year.
So Aiden's 2 years older.
Yeah.
Than you, then your sister, then RJ.
Yeah.
Okay, so were you kind of bummed out to be going to California because Vancouver and you'd played a little bit with Bedard? We'll get into that. And you knew him, and all of a sudden you're leaving Canada and going to not a crazy youth hockey market in San Jose. Like I don't know how old you were, but was it a little like I don't want to leave? Like I got my buddies and my team here.
Yeah, I mean it was definitely a huge transition. Like, there's so much hockey there. Like there's 5 rinks within 10 minutes of my house. So like. There's all that opportunity for ice, and I mean that's kind of the culture I grew up in too. Like no matter what, like you just go play. Like working out was less like on the scale of importance. So you just go out, play with your buddies, have fun. And moving down to San Jose, where we lived, there's the Sharks ice, the Sharks practice facility, and then the next rink was probably 45-50 minutes away from our house. So it was just a huge transition for us. I mean, I was excited.
How old were you then?
I was 14.
So that's a big time. Yeah, that's hard, dude. Like, 100%. You're dominating at your age group, and all of a sudden you're gone. That must have been a little difficult.
Yeah, it was difficult. Like moving down there. I mean, I played a year up when I went to the Junior Sharks program, which helped. But it was like we didn't really have time to set up with school. Like we homeschooled the first year we got there. So, yeah, I mean, overall it was a huge transition. And I mean, I loved it, but it was a lot.
I noticed Bedard's a lot into roller hockey. Given the lack of ice in California at the time, did you maybe do more roller hockey, ball hockey? Like, were you doing more of that stuff?
Yeah, I did. I tried that. Actually, we joined a league for a little bit down in California. I mean, in Vancouver, I never played roller hockey because there was always ice. But moving down there, I started to play a little bit, and then it kind of fizzled out, like
just because you were able to get access to more. Exactly. Was that because of like were you like traveling a lot to get the ice? Like, where were you going most of the time?
I mean, for the year that I was there, it was a lot. Like, so in San Jose, there's this thing called Gretzky Hour. It's pretty much like open hockey. It's like an hour and a half of ice. You gotta
Gretzky Hour?
It's called Gretzky Hour.
No shit.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's like it's an hour and a half of ice. You got to pay like $14 or whatever. You can get like a pass or whatever, but it's pretty much just open hockey. So like throughout the day, like we try to go during the day when it was less busy, and you just like skate on 1 or 2 Gretzky hours and then practice. Cause we only practice like 4 times a week, which was also like a little bit of an adjustment. And then everywhere we went to play games, we'd travel. Like we'd go, we traveled like Pittsburgh, and we go down to LA, and like, very rarely were teams coming to us just because like we were lower on the spectrum.
And when they travel, they want to go where they could play a bunch of teams, but that it would have only been you in San Jose. So your dad, like, he was so busy with Golden State and stuff. Like, I imagine your mom had a ton to do with your travel, and like, could he make everything, or was he not able to be at a lot of your travel and your games?
Yeah, it was definitely tougher for him to travel, especially at that point. He was still new with the Warriors, so he didn't really have that flexibility to leave. So for the most part, I would travel with some teammates, or I guess it was mostly traveling with like teammates. Like I'd just kind of be there with some of my teammates. And I mean, my mom with my 3 other siblings and my dad being so busy at work, it was tough for one of them to come with.
What was your dad's past in playing sports growing up? Did he ever play hockey, or was it different sports? And like, how did he get into what he ended up doing and becoming so good at?
He growing up, he played hockey until bantam, I think, and then he played professional soccer. He played for the Canadian national team playing soccer, and then he also played for, I think it was the Vancouver 86ers before they went to the Whitecaps. So he played pretty high level soccer, but what caused him to go into like what he does now is he had really bad, like he had 2 ACL tears, I think. He like shattered his foot. He had stress fractures in his foot, and like his foot, like he broke his foot, broken ankle. Like he had a lot of injuries that were mishandled.
And he was
so at the end of it, his career was cut short because he couldn't he couldn't play on, like, he's had like 5 surgeries on his right knee. So like at that point he was like, I want to go into preventing this from happening to any other athlete.
So you said preventing. So that's what I've always heard about your dad is it's more about like the prevention and what you can do prior to ever being injured to like basically make sure an injury doesn't happen. So for you and Aiden and your sister and brother, like even at a young age, were you always doing certain exercises or prehab type things like before practices or games, like even being younger?
Mm-hmm. It wasn't so much of like before we skate. It was just more like the workouts we did and the like even before we started lifting weights. We always did workouts, but it was all like movement type stuff, like stuff with movement, core, like
bands.
Yeah, bands. Bands around
the Brady pliability.
Yeah. It's just pretty much just like he calls it like an athletic neutral position where like you're moving in a safe way, like you're not compromising anything. I mean, I don't really know much about it, but
I used to do that with your uncle, and every time I moved, he'd be like, "Oh my god!"
He's like, "Dude, you don't move good.
Let's just get on the underwater treadmill again, fill the hour, and get this guy out of my fucking face."
He's hungover again.
So I want to go back to the Gretzky hour. Like, one thing about today's game is the skill set. Like, you look at guys like Connor McDavid. Obviously, your skills are at a different level. During those Gretzky hours, was there no one out there, so you were able to do those things on the ice where you're like going around the pylons or the fake dummies a certain way to develop those skills? Because I feel like that's like you have to do that nowadays in order to get to that level.
Yeah, I feel like for me, like, I mean, we went to so many, but a lot, I went with my older brother, so we play a bunch of one-on-one and we compete and battle. But a lot of it, yeah, like, usually when it was more busy, we'd do that. Like when we'd have less ice, we'd we'd work on like different kind of things, like whatever. Like for me, I would just kind of base it off like my last game. So like my last tournament, like I'd figure like I had this opportunity or I was feeling like weak in like this situation. Like that's where I would kind of go to the ice and like I would work on that. Like that's kind of like, because it's tough to like really like set a plan for yourself when like you're just by yourself on the ice.
You're young.
Yeah, exactly. But that's kind of like how I looked at it. Like whatever I felt in the game that I needed to improve, I'd kind of go to the ice and I would just try to work on it just to kind of improve.
That's awesome.
So say the Gretzky hour, I mean, if you're already going 90 minutes, you got to add 9 more and make it 99 minutes.
Yeah,
right? Who's in
exactly.
charge of that? Well, I just had the fortunate event of meeting your dad downstairs, Rick, and he was telling me he was talking to his players on Golden State and how these guys all watched the game and how amazed they were hearing about the injuries from all the guys who played in the playoffs. And what I want to ask, are there any lessons that you can incorporate into hockey that you might get from basketball?
Yeah, I mean, the way those guys I mean, it's just a different world.
Okay.
Like the basketball world it's so much different than hockey. Like even
They're divas.
I mean, I'm not gonna.
No comment. This guy's media trained.
Yeah.
Holy shit, this guy's media trained. Those BU guys are smart.
Oh yeah, you know me.
No, but I mean, I feel like from every athlete you can learn like from those guys, and I mean, they do love hockey. Like
that's good to hear.
My dad tells me all the time, like this year when Chris Paul, like he would check in, like while my dad was watching our game at work, like Chris Paul would walk in and watch a little bit with him. Like Draymond would ask like how we're doing and ask to see some highlights or whatever. So
nice.
I mean that kind of stuff's really cool. Just like how like they actually like care and like they're kind of getting more interested in hockey.
Good. Draymond seems like the type of guy who would like hockey.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
The physicality. I in talking to Joey Pereira, the assistant coach of BU and Pandolfo before the season, and they were just telling me about you. Like, wait till you see this kid. And they talked a lot about your 200-foot game, and I think that you get these supremely talented offensively players like yourself, and they're 17, 18 years old, and they want points and they want goals. But as they said right before, your season, it was like all defense. It was, you never cheated the game. And I kind of wondered if your dad was a part of that, if it was maybe watching certain players growing up, but you ended up getting so many points, but it was never like sacrificing the defensive side of the puck. And I don't know where that came from.
I mean, it's kind of how I grew up. Like my coaches growing up, they'd always preach on playing the right way. And like, there's a right way to play and a wrong way to play. And they'd always like John Calvano, who coached me since I was 6, playing spring hockey, Coach Connor as well. I mean, he would like, when we went to the Brick Invitational Tournament, he came into our locker room and he's like, one prime example is like, he walked in and he's like, if you want to win the scoring record, that's fine. We won't win the tournament though. Like you can't play that way, play selfish, play the wrong way and expect
what a great
to win.
coach.
Yeah.
So like, that was something that stuck with me. I was like, so like, if I want to like, if that's the way you need to play to win, then that's like something that I learned kind of early. And then throughout the like years that like I started like playing like that, it kind of just got more like you find yourself in better positions, like when you're below the puck or when you're in like when you're playing the game the right way, like you're always under the puck and you're always like coming. It just seems to find you a little bit more than if you're trying to chase those points or chase kind of the goals. Like it feels like sometimes it can bite you.
So Colby Armstrong, who's like part of our show, he had mentioned that, and he wasn't sure of the details, but apparently when you and Connor Bedard were younger, I know you're different ages, there was some sort of like, he says it was like a science project in terms of you guys like playing other sports and seeing how your body would end up handle compared to just skating and playing hockey all year. Do you know what he's talking about, or is he just phantom making this up? He said there's a picture of you two with like a doctor. It would have took him
6 minutes to ask it too, so I'm glad you summarized it in 30 seconds.
You know what I even, do you even know what I'm talking about or no?
No.
Okay.
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I love this guy's honesty. You're a fucking moron if you don't pick this guy first overall.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's
this guy. You must have crushed all your meetings. How many meetings did you do?
I had 8. Yeah, I had 8. So I mean, they were good.
The team
But-
picking
Who do you think you had the
best?
best chemistry with?
San Jose.
Yeah. I mean, San Jose's interview was just good. Like overall, like it was a great conversation. I mean, every team asked about my family. They were just curious about how I grew up. Wanted to learn more about me, which I mean, I appreciated. So
Yeah,
Is RJ like coming up too? Is this kid going to be a player?
he's good.
No
He's really
way.
good.
Well, how old is he?
You got the new Hughes family here?
Possibly. And actually,
one?
Aiden's a Vancouver pick. And I think Aiden has a very legit chance of playing in the NHL. Like probably play a couple years of college, no doubt, but a great player. But the more interesting one is your sister, who apparently is a top like ranked tennis player.
Yeah, she's a
Here
she's
go.
a superstar. Yep.
She's that good, huh?
I mean, to be honest, I'm not too familiar with tennis. Like
Yeah.
I'm not like I'd be lying if I could actually tell you what I don't know. But like she's amazing. Like everything I've heard about her. I mean, she's going to like Mexico, Belgium. Like
Wow.
she's going everywhere for these like international
How
tournaments.
old is she?
She's 15.
Holy
Yeah.
shit.
So it's crazy.
Is she Canadian or American?
She's Canadian.
Fucking
Yeah,
right.
Canadian.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Canadian
Whole family.
tennis.
Whole family,
Let's
yeah.
go, baby. I love that. So we talked about your defensive game, your 200-foot game. Like, what was the hardest adjustment though for you from going from the USHL to obviously what are you laughing at?
You like can't say USHL like every
USHL?
time you say like UCHL like it's like every time you say
I was
it.
an OHL guy. I got my grade 10 education. These guys get on me about a league I never fucking played in. Like, what was the hardest adjustment? Because all of a sudden you're going from playing against these kids to these men.
Mm-hmm. It was definitely like it was an adjustment, like no doubt. Like I feel like for me, because I mean that age discrepancy was still there. Like I was still playing against guys that were 3 or 4 years older than me, but I feel like the biggest thing was like the discipline in the game. I believe college hockey is a lot like a pro game. Like it's very similar. Like obviously it's not, but it's very similar in the fact that like a lot of teams, especially that we played against, were very defense oriented. Like they were very structured, very structured. Like their whole like system would be around like shutting down plays, like ending plays in the neutral zone, like those kinds of things. Where in the USHL, it was a lot more like junior hockey. Like there's a lot of running gun. Like you'd find yourself on a lot more 2-on-1s, breakaways, that kind of stuff. Where in college, like I don't know if I had an actual breakaway this year, which is like, I mean, they're not very often in general, but like it just speaks to like even like 2-on-1s, like it would be a lot of like 3-on-2s or like 3-on-2s with a back check. Like it'd be like there are very little odd man rushes.
When you decided on Shattuck, like I guess that was probably what, 1 year after being in San Jose? You played there 1 year, and then was that more about like the Crosby, Taves, all the names who had been there? Because you must have had so many people reaching out prep school wise, and maybe, you know, USHL would have been the year after that. But how did you decide on Shattuck?
I kind of like, I actually didn't know about Shattuck growing up. Like I'd never really even heard about it. And then at San Jose, one of my teammates, I think, he went to visit Shattuck, and he like, as like, because that's what they do, they recruit. So like they bring guys in, like you go see it, and they show you around. So he went on like a visit, and he told my dad about it. So I was just like, my dad told us about it, and then throughout that year, we were kind of planning on like what our plans were for the next year and stuff like that. And we went to visit.
What were other options? Sorry to interrupt you.
We were still talking about it, but I mean, at that point, it was pretty much just Shattuck. Like we were just pretty much just focused on Shattuck, because when we went, they did an amazing job. Like we loved it. Their whole proposition of, but then that's when COVID hit. Like COVID hit that March or whatever. So we were so lucky, because when we went there, it was like the first season after COVID, but we still played like over 50 games. Like we still played like a good amount of games, and we were practicing every day. Like it was tough. Like we were doing like virtual school, and we we were still practicing every day, but everything was in cohorts. Like our team was a cohort. Like every team was like a group, so you couldn't like mix groups. So I couldn't see my brother at all or anything like that. That's tough. Which is tough. Like you're moving away from home and you can't see your family that's at the same school. But I mean, like we were so lucky. Like we were skating a couple hours every day, still working out. It was tough. Like we got shut down early November until January, which was tough. But I mean, we were so lucky because we were still like, you talk to some guys in Canada, like they didn't even play games.
Yeah, like Wyatt Johnson didn't even play hockey that year.
Exactly. Like, and we played over 50 games. So it's like, that's where like we were so lucky with like that opportunity.
How are these moves like from a personal level? Because you moved down to the States, you're going to Shattuck, you're going to Chicago, you're going to BU in Boston. Mm-hmm. Like, how are these moves for you? Like from a personal level, was it hard to like adjust everywhere you went? Like that's a lot of moving around for a young guy.
Yeah, when we moved down to San Jose, that was probably the biggest adjustment just because like it was my first time moving. Like even now in San Jose, like I haven't really built relationships with many people in San Jose just because like I didn't go to school there. I didn't like I know like my hockey team that I play with, but like other than that, like it was pretty much very like it was my family and then hockey. Like there wasn't much like outside personal life, which it was tough. Like it was great because like that's why like me and my older brother are so close. Like me and Ann are so close, and like me and my siblings are very close, and we do a lot of things together. But it was tough because I still haven't really made those relationships. But after that, it was easier. Just like every move, like to Minnesota, then to Chicago, and then to Boston, like every move got a little bit easier, and you kind of just learn how to meet new people and kind of build those relationships.
What did you think of all the peckerheads in Boston when you played there? Lived there for a year.
No, I loved it. I loved Boston. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time. I want to ask, I feel like we're burying the lead a little. Connor Bedard, you played with him when you were kids. How old were you guys when you played together?
I forget exactly how old we are.
Were you playing D then?
I was playing D, yeah.
Yeah. When did you make that switch?
I started playing D a couple years before the brick. So I played a total, I think, of 4 years at D. So 2 years before the brick, and then 2 years after, or a year or two after the brick.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But probably helped your defensive aspect of the game, I would say.
Yeah, very helpful. And it also it gives you new like perspective on the game because you see it. Even though it's like you're on the same ice and you see it from a whole different view. Like just being able like being behind the play always, like kind of seeing how things develop. It definitely helped me a lot.
It's obviously family's important, hockey's important. What do you do aside from that? Like, what do you do to get away? Do you have like a silly hobby, or did you learn how to surf when you were in San Jose? Like, what do you do when you want to get away from everything?
I wish
the hockey jump.
Yeah.
you love it,
dude. Pandolfo
told me. Wayne.
Pandolfo told me that they had to you can't skate this morning like this. They had to legitimately lock him out of the rink.
Yeah, I mean, like I love spending time like in Boston. Like this year, we'd always hang out as a team, or especially our freshmen. Like we were super close, so we'd always go do something, whether it was grab dinner, just spend time. Like that's something that I love doing. Like I have hobbies. Like I'm trying to get better at golf. I'm not very good, but I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to work on it a little bit. Like I love playing like other sports, basketball, soccer. But for the most part, it's just spending time with my family and friends.
Plan on any celebratory purchases after you sign the ELC?
Yeah. What are you buying? What are you blowing your dough on? You getting a G-Wagon?
I've
Herbie
actually,
Doc wanted a G-Wagon. He got himself a G-Wagon. Oh yeah.
Wow. That's a great purchase. No, I'm honestly, I haven't really thought about it. Like it's definitely something that I should probably think about a little bit, but no, I mean, I'm sure there's something that'll come that I really want, but right now there's nothing.
All right. When did you first start thinking of like being an NHL star and the first overall pick? Like a couple of years ago, was it like, oh my God, like I'm starting to see my name as a possible first overall, or was it even before that? Like I was always part of your dreams. Like some people say at 10 years old, they just loved the game and hadn't thought about the NHL too much, but it seems like you're a little different than that.
Yes and no. Like I definitely like, it's always been my dream to play in the NHL, like every kid playing hockey. But when I was growing up, like I never thought that I would actually play in the NHL. Like I knew that I was good at what I did, and I knew that I had a shot. But the NHL was just always a dream for me. Like it was always something I watched on TV every night, and then went back to like minor hockey practice. So it's like it was never something that I really like thought about. And then probably last summer was the first time like I actually thought about the NHL, and I was like I could actually like play, which is it sounds kind of crazy, but you're never really thinking about that because like you hear a lot of this stuff like potential this,
you're trying to ignore
but
the
it's
noise.
like yeah, exactly, but it is like noise. Like you never know like how you develop or like what will come in the future. Like who knows if like this year whatever, like I didn't have a great year, then all that that stuff doesn't matter what they were talking about. So I just tried to keep it in perspective. Like yeah, it was cool like the way I was talked about and stuff, but yeah, I mean it's never really certain.
So you did a good job of staying in the moment. Do you do any type of like meditation and things to kind of like ground yourself like that, or does it just come natural? Because like you'd think at a kid your age, like you kind of get maybe a little too focused on that type of stuff. I know I did. Yeah. My draft ranking and all this. Why are you laughing?
No,
why are you laughing, you fucker? No, but I'm serious. Like I got caught up in it. Whereas like I don't know how you kind of took yourself away from it.
Pando had to help a little bit, right?
Pando helped a lot, like, but it was all just like keeping things in perspective. Like, really, like you think like if you're, I mean, I just kept the perspective of where like, I mean, anything can happen, and like, if like let's say like I get drafted first overall, like that doesn't change anything. Like when I get drafted first overall, I'll still need to prove something in the NHL. Like I'll still need to like live up to like that standard. So
the work never ends.
And exactly, like even though like you get drafted or all this stuff, like you're like until you're actually like a substantial player in the NHL, like even then, like that's what like,
you gotta keep it.
Yeah, I've talked to my dad about some of the athletes he's worked with, and I mean he just tells me about how they train. Like even guys like Henrik and Daniel Sedin and for the Vancouver Canucks, like even at the end of their career, because it's always like you're trying to get to the best you can be, and then you're trying to stay there. So like as long as you play, like in the later half part of your career, like you're just trying to stay at that level. So it's like you're never really not trying to get better and not working on things every day. So that's just kind of how I thought about it. Like,
and I think that's like kind of like Crosby, right? We've seen him change his game a little bit as he's gotten a little older. It's funny, there was a clip of you talking to Kevin Bieksa and with your Let's Go Canucks chant with your brother who's a Canucks pick, so he's allowed to, and I think you said that's the last time you'll be doing it. But were the Sedins your favorite player growing up, or did you have somebody else around the league you liked watching and trying to emulate?
I loved like Sidney Crosby was...
Yeah, he was your guy.
He is a hero of mine. Like when he won the like 2010 Olympics. I'm sorry.
Hey, what were you? It doesn't give a fuck. He was already at the Roxy in the third period. Couldn't even get a shift. What?
You're right. No, it was crushing. I was -1. Thanks a lot. But you were 3 years old.
Yeah, no. But like, I mean, I remember. Like, I actually remember that game. Like, I remember I was playing street hockey on like. There was like pictures of us playing street hockey in the intermissions of that game and like coming inside and watching that game. So
Crosby was your guy.
He was like my hero. And then I also loved watching like Patrick Kane and the Chicago Blackhawks. But no, like Vancouver was my team, and I loved watching the Sedins.
Got to be careful who you root for these days, eh, boys?
Yeah. Was the semifinal at the national championship Frozen Four the most was that the most nervous you've ever been for a game? Was that the biggest stage you've ever played on so far in your career?
I mean, yeah, you could argue that or the World Juniors.
Yeah, okay.
Like either or. I mean, the Frozen Four was like what our season came down to. So it was definitely. But it was a weird feeling because like when you get to like that, like it was the biggest game of our season and we lost. But I mean, when you get to playing in that game, like it's just another game, and you just try to approach it the exact same way that you've approached every other game. So it didn't really feel like the end of our season until like
right at the
20 minutes after, and then
Yeah.
you're like, wow, like that was it. Like that's our season's done. So it's like,
I think most NHL people this year watching BU, it was you and Lane Hudson, and you saw him hop right in. He looked amazing in the games he played for Montreal. So that had to be cool for you because you're seeing, all right, well, like I won the Hobie Baker. Me and Lane made such a difference all year, and he's flying around playing against the Detroit Red Wings. Was that cool for you? And kind of describe him as a player for any Canadians fans watching.
yeah, he's
a game.
I've actually haven't played with someone like him. Like
He's
I
got
played
an insane motor on.
Oh my God. Like I've played with a lot of great players, but to play with him, like the way he sees the ice and the plays that he makes.
The head fakes.
And you don't think you'll fall for them. You're like, nah, like I won't fall for them until you fall for them. And you're like, damn, like I did it. Like everyone else. But like even in practice, like there are times where I was just like I can't even like come out at this guy.
Yeah.
But no, he's watching him do what he did. I mean, but that's just the kind of player he is. He's a special player. And I'm a little biased, but I feel like he'll be a great player in the NHL.
What's up for the summer after this? Will you be in San Jose? Like, will you be with your family? Like in terms of skating and training, what will you be doing?
Yeah, I'll be mostly in Vancouver.
Oh, okay.
I'll skate a lot up there.
We should do a funny piece where I go train with you and Bedard one day.
You wanna?
I wake up at the crack of dawn, do all your diet. What are you doing? Like shakes and shit in the morning?
Yeah.
You got your vitamin packs.
We could do that. We could do
Would
that.
you guys do that?
This will try smoking before. It'll be like, dude, we're working out today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they got to do my day. Like you just like sit around and
You're
think
like this all day.
You just sit around and think of silly ideas for a podcast and rip the bong. What the fuck? Can we like go out and at least go for a run?
Talking about Pando, I want to mention the Bean Pot. I mean, he's a local guy. You were probably, I don't know how familiar you were before you got to Boston, but the result wasn't the best for you guys this year. But did you know how important it was to the 4 schools in the region when you went to BU?
I understood how much the Bean Pot meant, and I understood like the history behind it, but I never really understood of like you can't really understand unless you played in it. Like the crowd, the atmosphere, the energy, and it was weird for me just because like I didn't grow up in Boston.
Yeah, it's
like
different.
I didn't grow up watching this tournament, and it was an odd idea. Like 2 Mondays in the middle of February, you're like, it's kind of weird, but once you play in it or once you go to a game, you realize like how important it is. And I mean, that game against BC was
incredible.
Probably one of my favorite games of the year, just because of how amazing it was. Obviously, BC being our rival and them sweeping us 2 weekends before that. So it was an amazing experience, and I loved it.
Nice.
So Cole Eiserman's a draft prospect that you guys played together at Shattuck. You're pretty good friends. Like, what's his game like? I've just heard he's a goal scorer, can put the puck in the back of the net. Like, what can you describe in terms of his game and how he'll do at BU next year, you think?
He's an amazing player. Like, when we were at Shattuck, like, it was a lower level, but every time I got him the puck, he'd score, which is crazy. Like, every breakaway, like, he'd go on, like, whether I give him to him or not, like, you just know he was putting in the back of the net, which I haven't had like that feeling with anyone else that I've played with. Like, not to say like I haven't played with players that can score, but he's just something else where, you know, like if he gets like an opportunity and he misses, he'll be more mad at himself than like you could get mad at him. Like he's more disappointed in himself. Like he knows like what he can do. And it's not even like his shot is really good. His release is unbelievable, but it's where he puts it. Like his knowledge of like actually putting the puck in the net that I feel like is his real strength.
Oh, we got to talk about World Juniors quickly. What was that like? That was a blast, I'm sure.
Oh, it was so fun. I had so much fun. It was you grow up watching the World Juniors on TV every Christmas. It's a tradition. And then you get the opportunity to play in it, and it was a special experience. It didn't feel like a normal Christmas though, just because like you were like getting prepared for games, but it was a great experience. I loved it. It was just too bad how it ended.
I was chatting with you before we came up here. This is obviously not your first time in Vegas with your dad, you know, being in the NBA and all, but what was the craziest thing when you first got here? Like, oh my God, I can't believe this is a major city.
See you.
That wasn't his first time.
Yeah.
And again, I might have been. Go ahead.
No, it's just, I mean, I didn't really know what to expect. Like, obviously, it's kind of. I was talking with my brother about this. It's a smaller city than I actually thought it was.
Yeah.
Like this downtown and stuff. It's smaller than I thought it was, which was a little bit of a surprise. But I mean, coming in late June, early July, it's so hot outside. Like you can't even go outside. So it's just, I mean, but it's an amazing. You see why there's so many shows here, and there's a lot of entertainment. Even now, like the Copa America's here, like the soccer games are here.
Is that going on here?
Yeah, there's like, it's like Honduras and some Jamaica playing tonight, and then Brazil playing Friday or something.
Did you play soccer with your dad being such a good player? And they gave that up around 13, 14.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, dude,
this was awesome, buddy. If they don't pick you first overall, they're fucking morons. And I'll go in and fist fight them for you. You're not 18. I want to see a birth certificate.
And did you just turn 18 like yesterday?
Yeah, the 13th.
Oh, geez.
The whole season is a 17.
All right, sing them happy birthday with that voice yours. You've been on a 14-day bender with.
I'll get canceled again.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Macklin Celebrini,
awesome,
incredible run this year. Hobie Baker's a 17-year-old, and tomorrow night's going to be, or Friday night, excuse me, is going to be, the coolest moment of your life. So congratulations with everything, dude.
Yeah, man. Good head on your shoulders. Holy shit.
Yeah.
You're more mature than me and Ari put together.
Not a high bar. Thanks so much, pal.
I appreciate it. I'm a big fan. So
don't thank you. It means a lot. Nah, best of luck in your future, kid. You're going to crush it.
Thank you.
You got it.
Man, thanks to Mac for jumping on us. What a great kid. Me and G got to talk to him a little bit before he brought him up for the lobby at the hotel the other day. Just a genial kid. I think we kind of maybe loosened him up a little bit too because he had a great personality, smiled a lot. So, Mac, great interview, and best of luck to you in the future. The Wit Dog, your boy Slavkovsky in Montreal, 8-year extension, $7.6 million a year. A little bit of a how the tables turn situation here, huh?
Yeah, I mean, he ended up really coming on after I was like, what is this guy doing? He seems lost. Probably a little unfair of me based on how young he is. The size of him, his shot, I don't think that's questionable. I think people have kind of wondered about his hockey sense, but there's been guys who have struggled at the beginning. And this deal, while right now, yeah, it looks like an enormous overpayment. And I think when Jack Hughes signed his, and some people wondered, it's not like that because of the skill and the high-level playmaking you saw at Jack Hughes be when he signed his deal that was a little bit surprising. This one, it's just about looking towards the future and actually believing that he will turn into a 30-goal, 70, 80-point guy every year, and then you're laughing. As is the case with the Draisaitl deal, who not even a great comparison. I don't know why I'm going there, but now all I'm saying is the deal looks like a complete joke, while there might have been few people at the time that questioned it. So I was wrong in terms of how many goals he finished the year with. How many did he? I think it was 19. Over 20. Okay, 19. So he's right there. And that's after a really slow start and a lot of people calling him out. I think that it's a risky signing, but it's one that if you do hit the home run on, the GM's getting applauded. So you got to make big risks to have big success in this league. And this was one of those, but he's their first overall pick from a couple years ago. They got Suzuki signed up. They're going to have Demidov there at some point. They got Reinbacher, I think, was the defenseman they took very high in a recent draft. So they do have young pieces. And if you believe that he's going to become pretty legit, you sign him to this now, and then you hope that it ends up being a laugher of an underpayment in the long run.
Yeah, I feel like these deals are
you
just
hate
so...
these deals. You hate
No,
these
I
deals.
fucking hate... It's just so easy. Like, what do you mean? You just give a guy 8 years, like close to $8 million because he had a good end to the season and he had a few good games at the World Championship. Like, listen, like I think that this guy's a physical freak, and obviously when you're a physical freak when you're growing up, like you can kind of just dummy kids and bully them and physically take over games. But at the NHL level, we know you need to have a lot more than that. I think his hockey sense and hockey IQ is still something that's very much under question. I hope he exceeds it. I hope he exceeds expectations in what this contract has provided him. But I'm a little bit weary of it, and I didn't see a need to even do it. Because if he goes off next year and has 30 goals, 30 assists, do you really have to pay him more than 8 years at 7.6? Like, what?
If he got what next year?
If he goes 30 and 30 next year, you're telling me who's a guy who's restricted coming off his entry level that you have to go beyond of what they just paid him? Like, that to me is what doesn't make sense. Because it goes back to in certain situations with other organizations where I've basically been like, oh, congrats on getting your 30 and 30. This is what we're offering you, or you can fucking stay home. Like, it's not like Montreal ain't going to be winning next year. They probably won't even be making playoffs next year. So why the rush to just hand over all this money on a flyer on a guy who has proved himself for a half of an NHL season? It just, to me, it's like that's the
20. But
I could be a general manager and hand over that contract. It doesn't take any type of skill set to like try to get him before the curve, or whatever term you want to use. Hit him before he actually.
So what was it?
7.6 million a year.
Okay,
man.
So 7.6. Cap goes up next year. Say he pops.
Who gives a
he
fuck?
had 20 and 30 this year. He goes 30 and 35 next year. Maybe that's 8.2. And then over the course of the deal, I know what you're saying. I'm trying to look at this.
When did these GMs like hand over their balls in a mason jar to these fucking agents that haven't proved
It's the Young Bucks, dude. It's the high pick Young Bucks.
I like
they
seeing
own
the
it.
guys get paid, but I like seeing guys get paid who have at least put a little bit of time in. So there's plenty of these 8x8s you can look at and be like, sheesh. So probably more so than you'll say, this guy's exceeded expectations. So that's all I got to say about that. But happy for the kid and hope that he keeps accelerating his game based on what we saw in the back half and a little bit at World Championships.
All right, moving on to some more NHL news. NHL has reinstated Joel Quenneville, Stan Bowman, and Al McIsaac after the Chicago incident a few years ago. Gary Bettman basically banned them from the league. They had to go through different protocols, different programs, whatever the show can basically penance, I guess is the word I've been using. Whit, how long do you think it is before someone hires Quenneville? I mean, if he's eligible, if I was a team, I'd fucking hire him tomorrow. No, I mean,
can't be hired until July 10th as well.
Oh, well,
July 10th, and I think that Biz, you want to mention? I don't know if you want this on there.
Columbus.
What? Oh, no, is it?
Sorry, should I go?
No, I thought you said that did he talk to Beach? Is that what you said? Or can we not say that?
No, he did. No, that was in the report. No,
okay.
he did talk to him, and obviously Gary Bettman was satisfied with what all these guys did to reinstate them to be eligible.
I'll tell you this: in the real world, and not saying this isn't. This is the hockey world and the real world, especially this subject and what went down. But people get in trouble and they end up serving their time, paying their dealing with their sentence, as I put quote marks up. And I feel like they have. They've been out of the game a decently long time, and there are going to be people who think that they should never be able to be involved in the game again. I don't. That's just my opinion on it, and it felt like the time was kind of here. It seemed like it had been long enough. You hear enough rumblings, like when can Quenneville coach again? And then there were also things mentioned about him possibly. I don't know if it was Elliott or Jeff Marek saying maybe he'd have to be an assistant coach first. I don't know if that was a part of this release, but I'm telling you right now, you want to win games, and you're a GM that is willing to face a little backlash and not give a fuck about certain internet people and certain reporters that may come at you, you go hire Joel Quenneville to coach your team.
Yeah, and I had a chance to talk to him a little bit, guys. I think there's a lot about the story that hasn't gotten public, and I don't know if it ever will. The fact that he's talked to Kyle Beach and Kyle Beach has essentially gave him his blessing and saying that he believes that he should return. I mean, there's one person that should be able to say that, and it's him. And if that's okay with him, then it's okay with me. And I just hope that everybody can move on past this. I know that it's a type of thing for Kyle Beach that he'll never be able to move past this, but time heals, and I just hope that everybody ends up in a better place for it. And it was a very, very unfortunate thing and a very dark stain on the Chicago Blackhawks and the NHL itself. And I think that there's a lot of people out there that are not happy about this, and some of which are victims themselves of what happened. And I don't think that they're ever going to be they'll never be able to get over it, and they're going to have the same opinion as long as time goes on. So I guess the decision's decision, and I hope he ends up landing on his feet.
All right, boys. Some little fun news we can end with here, at least. The awards, the last 4 awards we missed, actually, the last 5 awards that were announced over the weekend. Connor Bedard got the call. There's no surprise there. Mac, he got both. Nate McKinnon got both the Hart and the Lindsay. I think there was somewhat of a surprise there that not only he won one of them, but won both of them, given the year that Cooch had. The Norris
and Cooch had to deal with that host, like giving him the Russian accent, trying to play with him, and Cooch was like, "I don't think so, buddy. I don't fucking think so."
He's like, "Glad I came over. Glad I came over from Russia for this, not to win
anything." Thanks for the trip over here for nothing.
Thanks for the brutal Russian accent.
That was some tough Yakov Shmanov impression. Granelli, stunt double Quinn Hughes on the Norris, and just gave an absolutely wonderful speech. Just like great what he said about Yossi, his whole family. I mean, if you're going to say this is how you give a speech, especially for such a young kid, he did a hell of a job.
I love how he said, too, I love watching my brother play, but Makar might be my favorite player to watch. And just giving nice compliments to your competition and guys that it's not bullshit. Like the respect that players have for other players in the league, especially the top-end talent, I think that once they get on the ice, it's different. But if you were to talk to these guys and have heart-to-hearts, like you're amazed at what guys in the league can do. And you're amazed at certain talents that guys you play against possess. And Quinn Hughes did an awesome job kind of describing his appreciation for other guys' games.
Well said, Whit. Well said. Now, Connor Hellebuck won the Vezina. Again, no surprise there. So, boys, I know we're going to wrap up now, but Mark Messier next week. Last episode of the season before we go into summer mode. Awesome interview we did up in Edmonton a couple weeks back. He was really loosened up, really showed a lot of his personality, not to mention the great story. So, boys, what a free agency day, man. What a weekend, what a trip. It's been a long trip. I think I did 13 flights in 20 days. I don't know I'll ever do that again, and I'll be happy if that's the case. But no one else would rather do it, boys. I know it's been touchy at times, but it's been a great run, great season, and hopefully we finish it up strong next week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some time off. It's been an incredible year. As I keep saying, the greatest in NHL history. I think free agency delivered as well, and what a way to cap things off. We're going to circle back next week with any following free agency news or anything else that comes out. RA just mentioned we're dropping Mark Messier. We were fortunate enough to sit down with some incredible people and bank some awesome interviews. So those will roll out throughout the course of the entire summer. And, we'll be able to hop on, bring those in and bring them out with little to no hockey talk. And I hope everybody enjoys their summer. I'm going to be actually heading off to the Calgary Stampede this weekend. And so if you are in the Calgary area, I'll be doing something at the Greta Bar. We've worked with Casey before, who owns all of them. And if you want to stop by, I'll be there on the first weekend on the Sunday. I believe it's the 7th, Sunday the 7th. And come by. There's going to be a live band, and I'm sure I'll see you on the Cowboy grounds as well. So, hey, listen, I took 9.5 months off boozing. I just went on a 3-week ripper, folks. I felt awesome. I had a blast. I loved hanging out with our whole crew and chasing around the Stanley Cup Finals as well as the awards and the draft. And we love you guys. So I'm looking forward to ripping it up a little bit more with friends. And like I said, getting some time off. So we love you guys. Whit, anything else you got to mention?
No, just headed over tomorrow to Nantucket. Family went over today. I'm driving the car on the car ferry tomorrow. I've loaded that thing up. I got to go finish doing that right now. I got to pack the meats in the coolers. I got all these things the wife put together. I got to fit into the car, and I cannot wait. Just honestly, by tomorrow afternoon, being on the beach with my family and the kids, and I cannot wait, and I hope everyone that is in America that's going to be celebrating the 4th of July has the best time with family and friends, taking it all in. Canada and America, two of the best places to ever live in the world. I'm biased. America, I love it. I love the 4th of July, and I cannot wait to spend some time with my family. It has been an amazing run, but it seems like everyone's just due for a little bit of a break. So next week we got Mess. We'll tie up any loose ends, any things we might have missed. If we did miss something that you hoped we talked about, there was so much. Trades, signings, the draft. It's just been such a wild couple days in the NHL, so we do apologize, and we'll clean all that up next week, along with saying a final goodbye before an awesome interview with Messier. Hope you enjoy Okposo. Congrats to him, and also congrats to Celebrini. I hope all you guys kind of were interested and enjoyed his whole vibe in life, I'd say. What a beast that kid's going to be. So a great episode. So much happening in the league. Great season. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Happy Canada Day. Love you guys.
Happy 4th.